Okay, y'all are live.
All right, folks, we are live. Then welcome everyone to the Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 version of the Historic Resources Preservation Board meeting. Can we get the roll call, Ms. Cole?
Do you want to do the swearing in first, and then I can include
right.
Mr. Harris within
All
the
right.
roll call itself?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Harris, I'm going to read this, and then normally I would have you read it, but since it's in my possession, I'm going to read it to you, and you just confirm what I say at the end, if you would. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida against all enemies, domestic or foreign, and that you will bear truth, faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same, and that you're entitled to hold office under the Constitution and the Charter of the City of Lake Worth Beach, and that you will faithfully perform all of the duties of the office of appointed board member of the Historic Resources Preservation Board, of which you're about now to enter?
I do.
Thank you. And now we can go to roll call. So Judith Fox. Oh, Judy.
Judith, turn on your
unmute.
microphone.
Here.
Good. Judy Fox is here.
Chip Guthrie.
I'm here.
Bill Feldkamp.
Here.
Judith Just is not here. Ozzie Ona.
Here.
Jeffrey Harris.
Here.
And Robert Dorenzo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Excellent. We are going to skip the Pledge of Allegiance and go directly into additions, deletions, and reordering. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Not this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the meeting notes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting notes from last meeting.
And a second?
I second.
Seconded by Chip Guthrie. All in favor, aye.
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 Motion passes. We now have swearing in of staff and applicants. How do you want to do that?
I think we have some attendees now.
Promote them now.
We got two.
Panelists. So Ray and Garrett, if you can enable your camera and microphone, please.
I'm gonna mark everyone that was sworn in with a big S just in case.
Garrett.
Hello.
Okay.
Garrett, nice to meet you all.
And then Ray.
I'm here.
Okay. So we have audio for Ray.
Am I missing him or do I see him? He's not there yet. Ray, could you enable your video?
There you go.
I still do not see him.
Struggling with this, but
Sometimes, this is Keith, the moderator. If you are on a mobile device, it might be looking the wrong direction. There's like the flip button just in case.
no, it's, I'm on my Mac. So
So on Mac, the up arrow next to start video, if you hit the little arrow and select camera, sometimes you might have an alternate option, but your FaceTime camera may be the best if you have a newer. And then peel off any tape that you may have sitting over your camera, because
No, I don't have any tape. But it's funny because this worked yesterday or the day before, and it's not working now. So
if you want to try to close and come back in real quick, that's fine.
all right, I'll try that. Thanks.
What item is Ray speaking on?
It's the first item.
Very first one, 631. Lucerne.
Yeah.
I'm ready to pull them back in. Just one sec.
Any better?
We have, let me ask you to start video and let's see if you can get on video.
Okay, start my video.
There you go.
There we
There you
go.
are.
All right.
Perfect.
Hello.
All right. Wonderful. So Garrett, do you want to come back, unmute, and start your video again, please? If you're giving testimony. All right, so we're ready. I think we have everyone here this time. Great. Please raise your right hand. For everyone who's planning on giving testimony, do you swear and affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
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 Thank you.
All right, we've done the swearing ins and we have proof of publication, I'm sure. Are there any withdrawals or postponements?
Not this evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And board disclosures. Disclosures from all board members as to what they may have heard or listened to regarding any of the items coming up. Ozzy, any disclosures?
The issue will be okay, the turf, artificial turf. I received a lot of emails talking about the against pass this resolution or whatever it is. And I guess everybody got the same emails. And I think there's a lot of concern for all the residents, and we had to really think and talk about it.
Okay. Ms. Fox, any disclosures?
As I said earlier, I had a voicemail from a woman. Her name was Charlene something or other, and she was calling about the meeting tonight about a Schedule E, and I looked through all my paperwork and I couldn't find out what Schedule E with Pope something or other was. I did not talk to her.
All right. Mr. Harris?
No, the one email from the woman regarding the artificial turf. That's the
Thank
only
you.
thing.
Mr. Dorenzo?
No, sir.
Mr. Guthrie?
No issues at all.
And I have received a few emails regarding one of the items, and that's it. All right. Let's go right into new business then. So Mr. Hodges, you want to take it away?
Sure. Is that correct? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll be presenting this item for you this evening. Item A, which is the consideration of a completed work application for historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption, and the review and recommendation to the City Commission of a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the subject property located at 631 Lucerne Avenue, commonly referred to as the Hummingbird. Pardon? The property owners, Ray Moranges and Richard Cruz, are requesting approval for the certification of a completed work application for the historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption and the recommendation to City Commission. The office building is located in the downtown district and retains a future land use designation of downtown mixed use. The building is a contributing resource to the Old Town Local Historic District and is located at the southeast corner of Lucerne Avenue and North K Street. We'll just do a brief recap of the property. So it's a two-story commercial structure, again, referred to as the Hummingbird, and was constructed circa 1922 in a masonry commercial vernacular architectural style. Information in the city's property file indicates that the structure was constructed as the McCarthy Hotel and was owned and operated by Mary McCarthy. The structure remained the McCarthy Hotel until 1995, when it was renovated and reopened as the Hummingbird. The building's character-defining features include its recessed corner entrance, regularized window and door sizes and rhythms, decorative scupper details, terracotta block construction, and stucco finish. And although simple in design and construction, the building is a prime example of a 1920s economical downtown hotel. On July 12, 2017, the HRPB approved a request by the applicant for a certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations in a pre-construction historic preservation tax exemption application. The applicant worked closely with staff to devise a rehabilitation plan for the structure, as the building had sat in a state of disrepair for many years. As you can see on the screen, these are a number of shots, interior and exterior, that was part of the pre-construction application. So for the what the board approved at that meeting, I'll just do a brief recap, was to replace all of the windows with new aluminum impact single hung and fixed windows, replace all of the doors with new impact aluminum full view French doors, restore certain window opening sizes that had been altered over time on the northwest and south facades, install a new recessed entryway on the west facade. The applicant proposed removing a glass block on the front facade and creating new door openings, restore and repair exterior stucco as needed, install new canvas awnings, and to add a decorative mission-inspired paint scheme and signage for retail tenants, and also to rehabilitate the existing neon sign. But in addition to that scope of work for exterior alterations, the structure was proposed to receive a complete interior renovation, including but not limited to new electric, plumbing, and mechanical upgrades, new interior walls, interior doors, new flooring, and new workspaces and bathrooms. As you can see on the screen, those were the approved facade changes. So we'll go through some of the before and after photos of the completed work. But as you can see here, the non-original glass block was removed on the front facade to create a new door opening, and a decorative paint scheme was installed. On this slide, you can see additional photos of the building's exterior after the work was completed. Again, all the windows were replaced with new aluminum impact products, as well as the doors. As you can see on the picture of the left, the original neon sign for the hotel was rehabilitated with new neon to advertise the new business. And here are some photos of the interior work. Some of the original wood from the interior of the building was salvaged for the flooring on the staircase. So staff reviewed the documentation and materials provided in this application and has performed multiple site visits to the property after final inspection. It is staff's analysis that the work performed at the property followed the scope of work approved in the pre-construction application and complied with the conditions of approval included in the Certificate of Appropriateness Development Order. According to the Lake Worth Beach Building Division records, all associated work for the property was reviewed under Building Permit 18224, and the building permit application was applied for on January 22nd, 2018, and final inspection occurred in March of 2019. The applicant valued improvements at $330,000. The HRPV made findings at the July 12, 2017 regular meeting that the property was eligible for the exemption and that the proposal was in keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and the requirements set forth in Section 23.5-5 of the Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulations. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the completed work application and also recommends that the HRPD recommend approval for the historic preservation tax exemption to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission. The potential motion is provided on the slide. Staff did slightly revise the motion from what is in your packets, just to make it a little bit more clear, as there are two motions to be made, one to approve and one to make the recommendation for City Commission. But the applicant is here with us this evening, Mr. Marangis, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the applicant?
Nope, not at the moment, other than I was traumatized by seeing those before pictures.
A beautiful project, wonderful work.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Just one little thing that I'd like to point out to members, look at the depth of the recess of those windows on the second floor. That's something that we seem to be losing in a lot of our recent projects. The depth of the recess makes a big difference in how those windows read. So that said,
A curious question I have. And on the front there, is that a little hummingbird?
That's a little hummingbird. We wanted
Okay.
to pay a tribute to the Hummingbird Hotel.
Okay. Cute.
Well, if there's no other comments, can I get the first of two motions, please?
I move to approve HRPB project number 17-001000137 for a completed work application for a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the property located at 631 Lucerne Avenue, based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulation and Historic Preservation requirements. Further, I move to recommend approval to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission for Historic Preservation ad valorem tax exemption to the subject property.
Thank you, sir. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Guthrie. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations and
Thank you all
for the work you've done for the city.
Thank you all.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it. And Abraham too. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
Let's move on to the next item, item B, another consideration of completed work. And perhaps Mr. Hodges, you could take it away again.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay, yep, so this is item B, consideration of a completed work application for historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption. And again, the review of a recommendation to City Commission of a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the subject property located at 910 North M Street. The property owner, Frank Vieira, is requesting approval of the tax exemption, again, for the property at 910 North M. The single family residence is located in the SFTF 14 zoning district and retains a future land use designation of medium density residential. And again, the building is a contributing resource to the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District and is located on the east side of North M Street between 10th Avenue North and 9th Avenue North. Just a brief recap on the property. The building was constructed circa 1950 in a masonry minimal traditional architectural style. And although the architect is unknown, a Mr. and Mrs. F. Weiler of Lake Worth commissioned the building at a value of $8,500. The residence displays characteristic expressions of the masonry minimal traditional style. Based on these drawings, it does appear that the residence was designed with metal 2 and 3 light awning windows, although the structure was actually built with metal casement windows, which were more commonly used for the architectural style during this period of construction. The property also contains a rear detached frame garage with a gable roof with vehicular access from the alley. And overall, the buildings do retain a significant degree of their historic integrity of location, setting, materials, and design. On March 11th, 2020, the HRPB approved a request by the applicant for a certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and a pre-construction historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption application. The applicant did work very closely with staff to arrive at a window replacement and roof replacement program for the contributing resource. So we'll just go through the scope of work real quick. They did request to remove all of the existing casement, fixed, and single hung windows and replace them with new CGI aluminum impact horizontal roller and single hung windows that replicate the original casement design. They also requested to remove the existing 3-tab asphalt shingle roof and to replace it with a new Eagle Roofing white concrete tile roof in the Malibu simulated barrel tile. They also replaced a flat roof on the primary structure in the rear. And then the garage, they requested to replace the 3-tab asphalt shingle roof with a new Owens Corning dimensional asphalt shingle roof. So now we'll go through some of the before and after photos of the completed work. This is the front facade, and as you can see, the casement and fixed windows were replaced with new CGI aluminum impact roller windows that replicate the original appearance. The 3-tab asphalt shingle roof was replaced with the new Eagle Roofing, the Malibu simulated barrel tile. Here's another angle of the front facade that shows the completed work. These are some close-up photos of the replacement windows that did a pretty successful job at replicating the original casements. And these are some photos of the roof that was replaced with the concrete tiles, flat roof as well. And you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner, that is the garage roof that was replaced. So staff has reviewed the documentation and materials provided in this application, and it is staff's analysis that the work performed at the property does follow the scope of work approved in the pre-construction application and the conditions of approval included in the COA development order. According to the Lake Worth Beach Building Division records, the roof replacement for the property was completed under building permit 19-2068 and the window replacement under building permit 20-1122. The applicant values the improvements at $37,809. The HRPB made findings at the March 11th, 2020 regular meeting that the property was eligible for the exemption and that the proposal was in keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and the requirements set forth in section 23.5-5 of the Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulations. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the completed work application and also recommending approval that the HRPB make a positive recommendation to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission for the ad valorem tax exemption. I believe the applicant is here with us. No? They're not here with us right now. I do have our motions ready, but if you'd like to ask any questions, I can try to answer them as best as possible.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? I guess if not, does someone want to make a motion?
I have one question. Did they add a window on that wraparound on the front there?
No, so it's difficult to see in the before, but there's actually a hurricane shutter over it in that
Oh,
before
okay.
picture. But they were originally the corner casements. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a little comment. I live around the corner of this property, and it's a nice property. They did well the roof, but as a comment, the front yard and they had to work a little bit longer because the front yard is very messy. I don't know, one of the pictures they could show you, even the drain from the roof is just hanging by itself. Its pieces are missing. I don't know. It's a shame because they never finished completely the project. Like I said, would be a good example for another property, but like it is right now, especially the lawn and the landscape is really in bad shape.
Yeah, we have talked to the applicants on several occasions. I believe that they do have future work planned. And I know that they had mentioned painting the residence and doing landscaping. But as far as what this certificate of appropriateness was for, just for the scope of the windows and roof, they have completed that. But I do know they have future work slated.
All right.
Jordan, I have a question.
Sure.
The roof style going from the 3-tab to the simulated barrel tile on this particular project, was that your first choice on that, or would this structure have generally been originally constructed with flat cement tile?
So if you'll look on the screen right now, those are the original drawings, and it's labeled as a white cement tile.
Right.
It would be my belief that it would have been a flat tile, but since it didn't really specify it, the tiles aren't drawn on the building, and the roof had been removed at some point in time. We did give the applicants options to go with a roofing material that in the design guidelines says would be compatible for the minimal traditional masonry architectural style. And the white barrel tiles are included as a compatible option. So that's what they requested.
Okay, and the board didn't have any input on that, I guess, right?
Yeah, so they actually put forward at staff's recommendation, they put forward both the flat roof tile and the barrel roof tile. But it was discussed at length at the meeting, and I believe that you all let them go with either, and they chose the barrel.
Yeah, Chip, I see where you're going with this, and I think if we had this to come in front of us now, we probably would have insisted on the flat tile version.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little less successful, but now we have our guidelines.
Correct.
So,
The
excellent.
tax exemption they're going for, is that just for the work that has been done? Is there any?
It's just for the work that's included in this scope. So it would include the roof replacement and the window replacement.
Is there anything that states that they need to go forward? As you said, with the painting and the art, et cetera, in order to get this
no,
exemption?
because none of that work was proposed under the scope.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be able to include it in their tax exemption. So they can move forward and do landscaping and do a paint job and, further improvements, but it wouldn't be included under this tax exemption.
Would they be able to go for another tax exemption if they did that?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you can stack your tax exemptions.
Interesting.
Okay, so the tax exemption on this, let me just to make sure everybody is clear on it. The tax exemption is on the increased value that this made, or just the cost that they put down. In other words, they would deduct that from the appraised value of the house and pay taxes on what is left.
It is the difference in the assessed value as a result of the improvements.
Assessed value, not market value.
Correct. So,
Okay.
those
It's a
are typically
worthwhile program,
beneficial when it comes into, you know, additions, adding square footage, things that really affect the assessed value of a home. New windows and a new roof will certainly affect an appraised value, but how much savings there are to be had in a tax exemption for something like this is up for the applicant to kind of work out with the property appraiser beforehand.
And typically, does the applicant get they just go by their ad valorem tax assessment from the previous year? And then when this work is done and they get their certification from our board and then reaffirmed by the city commission, then that addition, if they see
Increase?
yeah, an increase in assessed value, then that increase is what they are not paying tax on for the next 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct. During that period of 10 years, your ad valorems can increase with general increases in property value, but it won't be as a result of the improvements under this application.
I got it. Okay, I'm there.
Interesting education for all of us.
Yeah, and that just
I was, oh, go ahead, Judy.
includes work that's on the house itself, not any additions such as pools or sheds or so forth.
So the way that our tax exemptions are kind of laid out, there are various things that you can get approval for. If you're doing an addition, you can certainly include that addition into the tax exemption, but there has to be a preservation component. You can't just add an addition and get a tax exemption. So it needs to be, if you're replacing windows that are compatible and, sensitively designed for the house, if you're doing a roof replacement with a more compatible material, something like that would be considered, within the realm of preserving the building or a preservation related item. But if you're just doing an addition, we wouldn't offer it for something like a pool. But those things can potentially get tied into a larger tax exemption if there is a preservation component to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, can I hear a motion? Or one of two motions?
I move to approve HRPB project number 20001-00061 for a complete work application for historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the property located at 910 North M Street, based on the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulation and historic preservation requirements. Further, I move to recommend to the City of Lake Worth Beach City Commission this application and its approval.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Motion made by Mr. Dorinzo, seconded by Mr. Guthrie. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item C. Once again, Mr. Hodges.
Okay, this is item C, again, Jordan Hodges for the record, which is a consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for accordion shutter installation for the condominium unit located at 31 South Gulfview. It's unit number 13. The subject property is a contributing resource to the South Palm Park Local Historic District and is located in the medium density multifamily residential zoning district. Again, the subject property is located on the northwest corner of South Gulfview Road and First Avenue South intersection.
Is the applicant with us?
It doesn't appear to be at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
The owner of unit number 13 is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to install accordion shutters. If approved, the subject application could allow for the installation of aluminum impact accordion shutters in white over existing window openings on unit number 13. At the board's discretion, this proposal could set a precedent for future requests related to the shuttering of units of the Hampshire and Statler buildings. In other words, other units in these two buildings could request accordion shutters administratively without board approval. Okay, so a little bit of history on the building. The subject property is known as the Hampshire Building, and that was designed by Lake Worth Beach architect Arthur Weeks, and construction began on the building in June of 1947. This building is part of the larger Gulfstream condominium complex, which is comprised of this structure, an identical structure to the south known as the Statler Building, and a larger 7-story condo building to the north. The Hampshire and the Statler buildings are designed in a mid-century style with colonial revival elements, and they still retain most of their original features. Character-defining features include their L-shaped design, louvered doors, colonial revival pedimented door surrounds, wrought iron stair railings, flat roof with a parapet, and concrete masonry construction with a stucco finish. Pictured above to the right is the sister structure to the south, the Statler Building. And these buildings initially served as long-term vacation rentals or villas as part of the Gulfstream complex. As you can see in the photo, the buildings were designed with decorative steel divided light casement windows and the old roll-down metal awnings. Both the Hampshire and the Statler buildings have received approval from the HRPB for window replacement with new aluminum impact single hung windows. Prior to the HRPB approval for window replacement, one unit in each structure received administrative approval for accordion shutters in the years 2000 and 2007. These approvals took place before the adoption of the city's historic preservation design guidelines, which provide a guide for appropriate shuttering systems for historic buildings. Both the Hampshire and the Statler building have piecemeal product replacements, and as a result, there is a mix of original and replacement windows, as well as original shutters and replacement shutters that have created an inconsistent appearance over time. Approving additional accordion shutters that will not be used by all units could exacerbate the issue. Currently, administrative approvals for accordion shutters are only granted when the openings are not visible from a public street. As you can see here under the current conditions slide, there is, like I said, one unit in each building that received permits for accordion shutters. You can see the ones in the Hampshire building on the left. On the right side picture here, you can see some of the replacement windows. Several units with original windows and the original roll-down awnings. The city's historic preservation design guidelines provide a guide for appropriate hurricane protection for structures within the historic districts. Storm protection for buildings in South Florida is essential, particularly when securing openings and vulnerable building components from possible damage due to wind, debris, and water infiltration. This is especially true of historic resources, which also often consist of unique and irreplaceable building materials. Per the design guidelines, accordion shutters are not appropriate when visible from the street, as this shuttering system utilizes permanent tracks and panels that detract from the appearance of a structure's openings. Accordion shutters, while practical and easy to operate, they do permanently alter the visual characteristics of a building. Their frames fully encompass a window surround and project from a building's facade. Unlike removable panels or screens, accordion shutters are permanent fixtures to the building that significantly alter its appearance year-round. Due to these unfavorable characteristics, accordion shutters are, again, only allowed administratively when they are not visible from the street, or when alternate shuttering systems are not practical, such as a window opening on the upper floors of a high-rise, or when the openings are too large for removable panels or alternate systems to be effective. Administratively, staff can approve a variety of shuttering systems. Removable shuttering systems such as metal corrugated panels, clear Lexan panels, and fabric screens without permanent tracks that can be removed when not in use and do not permanently impact the exterior appearance of a structure. When appropriate for the building's architectural style, impact colonial and Bahama shutters may be utilized as they do replicate historic shuttering systems. But staff is not recommending approval for colonial or Bahama style shutters in this instance, as this could again add another type of piecemeal product replacement and installation on the building. The accordion shutter installation, again, as proposed, could not be approved as it would be visible from the street. Pictured is the requested installation schedule, which shows that they're requesting 2 accordion shutters on the front facade and 4 on the rear facade. The building is highly visible in the round, and therefore all sides are visible from the street. In addition, accordion shutters, so staff recommends that all units in the Hampshire building utilize a uniform removable shuttering system without permanent tracks that can be removed when not in use. As the request is not in compliance with the Lake Worth Beach Historic Preservation Design Guidelines criteria for shuttering systems, staff is not recommending approval of the application as submitted. The HRPB, as tasked in LDR section 23.2-7C7, shall review the request and supporting exhibits to determine if a COA can be granted. There are 2 motions. Has the applicant logged in? The applicant still isn't with us. So if you'd like, I can answer any questions that you have.
All right. Questions from board members?
I have a few questions about this overall complex.
Sure.
The tallest building, I'm looking at a particular picture on my computer. Yeah, that one right there. The taller building, that looks like it has some sort of accordion shutter on it already. Is that right?
Yeah, so those approvals, I believe, started in the early 2000s. And this is kind of one of those instances where it's not great, but an accordion shutter is really the only appropriate type of shuttering.
Because because you can actually do it from pretty much the inside of the building. You don't have to get on
exactly. You know, you'd have to have a crane lift you up there to put up removable panels. And also you can see on the right of the building, there are accordion shutter systems that completely cover the balconies. And that's because the door openings, the sliding glass door openings are so large on that building. And the railing systems feed in right next to the doors that the accordion shutter system can't adequately fit around it. So they have to do the entire balcony.
Right.
So there are instances like that where they're absolutely kind of necessary unless you're doing full window replacement.
Right. And is that entire building is taken care of right now, right?
I believe it is. Yeah.
All the openings are somehow covered like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So these lower I think then that doesn't preclude eliminating these accordion shutters on the lower building, I don't think.
We don't think so. The smaller buildings, it might be a little bit difficult to, you'd probably have to get someone with a ladder to put them up on the 2nd floor. But lots of people have 2-story homes with removable panels. So it is doable for this building.
And just out of curiosity, do you know on those old style roll down shutters that are on there right now, were they also put on in sort of a piecemeal manner throughout the life of the building?
So there, I remember when it doesn't look like it. It looks like they were all original to the building. You can see them here in this old advertising material.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, they look great. They're the coolest type of old shuttering. And that's another thing with, with any new shuttering material, just the way that those, any kind of removable panel or any kind of fabric panel or accordion shutters, they end up losing the old ones, which is very unfortunate. We have had people do window replacement in these buildings and keep the old roll down shutters, which, works just fine. But Anytime you do a new shuttering system, those typically have to go.
Well, the thing about these roll down shutters, besides the fact that they add some pretty nice detail to the building, is that they actually offer shade. I mean,
Yeah.
and I would think anybody would want to get shade in there,
Yeah.
just to reduce their air conditioning loads.
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with this is, can a suggestion or anything be made that that's the direction these guys should be going? Apparently, there is no condominium association or homeowners association that's kind of mandating the replacement of all the windows all at once.
So as I understand it, the condo association has requested that everyone either replace their windows to the impact windows that have already been approved on the building, or get a type of approvable shuttering system.
Right.
I believe it's for insurance reasons for the building.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I understand that.
I think there should be a consistency to it. I came from a place where I had the accordion shutters in there. Absolutely wonderful. You lean out,
Yep.
you shut them, and boom, it's done, you know. But you look at it and it looks like a checkerboard. You know, is there any way that it's feasible? I love these clamshells. As
Yeah.
you know, as you were saying, you know,
I remember when this
the building, you know.
I remember when this came in front of us a couple of years ago. The right-hand photo, unit 12, has the approved new window. It's two double hungs. They're not great, but they're okay. And I think that already 4 or 5 of the units in this building have changed to that new window type.
Yeah.
And someday in the future, presumably the entire building will be that.
Correct.
You're right, Mr. Harris, that it's a shame to lose the shading quality and the charm of those roll down shutters. But A, I don't think they make them anymore, and B, even if they did, I doubt that they'd meet current hurricane requirements.
Is there any way they can all look the same, whatever is chosen, as opposed to looking so mishigash?
So that's kind of what we're going after here. So, you know, like Bill was saying, or like the chairman was saying, eventually, you know, unfortunately, all of the original casement windows will likely be replaced with an impact product. So keeping in that train of thought, most people, although it is recommended, most people don't shutter impact windows. So what we're kind of going for here is a shuttering system that is not permanent, does not use any kind of permanent tracks, and that when not in use is almost invisible. So typically people use a panel mate or a recessed bolt system, either for the removable panels or the armor screens, which are becoming increasingly popular. If you're not familiar with those, it is a fabric material that is stretched over recessed bolts on the wall. And it's almost like a Kevlar material. It gets the same impact rating as any kind of metal panel, but you don't have to worry about storing them like you would a metal panel that takes up a tremendous amount of space. You can roll them up and slide them under your bed. So that's kind of what we're going for here, is something that is completely removable when not in use, so that eventually when all of the windows are replaced in the building, it does have a uniform appearance.
So we would have no clamshells.
If people did want to do window replacement and keep their clamshells, they could, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see people reinstalling them on windows that have already lost them.
Jordan?
Sure.
The windows that have already received the accordion shutters, those windows are also now visible from the street. Is that correct?
Yeah, since they were done with a permit before those regulations were ever put in place, those would be able to stay.
And it is is it true that any of the remaining unit owners in there would be able to receive an administrative approval if they put in impact windows similar to what is in the right-hand picture toward the back?
Yeah, so the two approvals for the Statler and the Hampshire buildings, they were taken to the board at different times, but they each received the same approval for the same products. So it's a blanket approval for the building. So if someone, if individual residents want to come forward and do their units at different times, they already have that approval and they can just apply for a building permit. We'll review it to make sure that it's in compliance with what was approved, and they can just move forward with window replacement.
So therefore, if everybody were to, the remaining, other than the ones that have already put on accordion shutters, if this board said that you can either put up a removable track, which I'm not really for, but you could either do that or put in impact glass that resembles the one in the right-hand picture, then this board would be helping the entire structure maintain some sort of semblance of continuity all the way around, right?
Yeah, you would be setting a precedent for and a blanket approval for kind of the building moving forward. They already have their COA for window replacement. And this kind of gives staff guidance as to what appropriate shuttering systems for the building would be for future applicants.
I would be
What's
inclined
stop
to
another
approve that.
applicant from saying, well, he's got those, the reach out, the shutters, why can't I?
Well, we get that a lot.
Yeah.
Accordion shutters are very frequently requested throughout the historic districts. We always point to the design guidelines. And that's one thing about accordion shutters is that they tend to last forever. So a lot of people, put them on in the 80s and 90s before, before the buildings were even in a historic district. So, if people have them and they're permitted, they can keep them for forever. But as for, new applicants, we just always kind of, point to the new regulation. Whenever you're permitting today, you have to follow today's codes.
Mr. Hodges.
Assuming that this might be denied, perhaps this applicant could be persuaded to spend a little extra money and put in the new code windows. Yep. Other questions, other comments?
Question?
Yes.
Hello. Yes, I have a comment. As a personal policy, always I respect and follow the recommendation of the staff, but just walking, in the specific case, if you walk around the building, especially in the south building, there's a lot of inconsistency about how we apply the rules and regulations. And you can see, as a owner of the property, you apply for these shutters. You can see what happened with the neighbors in the other buildings, what happened to neighbors across the street. And I think it's a lot of consistency, and we start stopping the owner to I don't think it will be fair for the owner. And I think it will be, I don't think it will be affect that much the visual aspect of this building. On the other hand, it will be a mismatch of things, whatever, as a city, we had to be more consistent and let's do it or don't do it. Because especially, like I said, specific in this building and two buildings, they are really complete similar. And especially in the south building, already the majority of the apartments, they use already the shutters. And if we deny to the owner this, I don't know how we'll be sending a mixed message to the rest of the residents of the building.
I think we have been consistent, certainly over the past 4 or 5 years, since we gave the blanket approval for the new windows. And you can see from these photos that probably a third of the apartments have gone with the new windows, and we assume that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, that the building will be, again, consistent with the new impact windows.
Mhm.
And like we were saying earlier, you know, did this come in as a permit or was this just started? Yeah, so this started as a permit. I believe it came in just as a permit without a certificate of appropriateness application. And whether this was a multi-unit condo building or a single family residence, if it's visible from the street and it's an accordion shutter, per our regulations, it gets denied. So it doesn't stop people from achieving impact protection. They can go with a number of other products. It's just that specific product just does not meet the objectives of the design guidelines. So I don't think it would be inconsistent to deny people in this building because people all throughout the districts get denied for accordion shutters pretty regularly.
I have a question.
Chip.
Jordan, if we could strengthen this, I hear we're probably going to deny, obviously we're going to deny this because of many different reasons, but is there any way that we could, within this ruling by the board, include some guidance so that any other, that you could go back to this ruling and say that any other owner comes to you and says, okay, what can we do? Well, so the board has approved you to put in impact glass that looks just like these. And
Sure.
is that, and maybe the attorney needs to get involved, Pamela, on is wording on this particular case appropriate, or we just give that as a consensus guidance to staff?
It would be a consensus guidance to the staff so that they can tell anybody coming forth, this is what they've said before, this is what they've done in the past. And if you don't agree with us, they're still going to say it again because they've told us to tell you these things.
But they could go ahead and apply to the board for an exemption. Okay.
They could still, yes.
I would like to make a motion if I could.
All right.
I'd like to address, I have a question.
Sure.
If I could, please.
Yes.
Mr. Hodges, if memory serves me correctly on this on this complex, I know they have a large percentage of tenants, but the point I was making is, are there just 2 windows per unit on the majority except for the corner units? Isn't it just a front window in the living room area and a bathroom window?
There are 2 units in each building.
Right.
So each unit has probably 4 to 5 windows.
It's only one room.
These are, no.
It's a room with a bathroom and a kitchen.
These are studio apartments. Each
They're
window,
studios.
each apartment
So
has.
if I'm looking at the back, they only have basically downstairs on a corner, you got 2 windows and a bathroom window. I'm not counting the door. So really, we're only talking 3 windows max per unit.
So,
Correct.
so this applicant here, you can see on the screen down to the right.
Right.
They have 4 windows in the back and 2 on the front.
4 windows on the back.
So I don't know if this unit was maybe combined with another unit at some point. I'm not sure.
Possibly, because being in those units, they're studios. They're a living room with the. If you go back to the other picture.
Yeah. Go back to the floor plan if you would.
Okay, there you go.
One
Those-
more. Back one more.
Back. Where are we going, Bill?
There's a floor plan.
The floor plan.
I don't have the floor plans pulled. I can access them real quickly if you don't mind.
Sure. Because I'm pretty sure we're only talking 2 windows.
Yeah.
Are these rentals?
The majority of those, come up as investment properties quite often, and they're quite often up for rent. And I know as a landlord, it is a pain in the butt to get somebody to go over there with a ladder because they don't have an on-site or maintenance company to put their panels up on the second floor and all that. That I understand. But trying to keep with some kind of continuity here, and that we've already approved the choice of a replacement type window or some type of protection. I agree with that. Our guidelines start at a certain point. So, I mean, we do it on roofs, windows, doors, all of that now. We have to abide by our guidelines. Otherwise, why do we have them?
Mr. Dorenzo, this is William. May I add another point? It appears too that the accordion shutters are over windows that are casements.
Right.
Second floor, you're going to have a ladder to close the accordions.
Yeah.
But you can't close accordion through a casement window.
Right.
So you really haven't saved yourself much effort in putting accordions on the second floor.
No. So when we're looking at these, really, it's they're a studio. So you have a bathroom window, your kitchen door, and a front window. So you're only talking about 2 windows.
Yes.
In the majority of them. When you got the corners, I believe you got 2 main windows and then 1 in the bathroom. So it is not that big of an expense for a small bathroom window and your front window compared to putting those accordions are not cheap.
No,
they're not.
Yeah. I wonder if this application is for 2 different apartments, or as someone said, maybe one
they
apartment
merged
that has
two.
been combined.
Floor plan.
There we go.
Yeah,
That's
because
at apartment number 13. So they, I wonder if this bedroom was.
I think when they connected the building, some of the units have that extra space, which I believe is they're probably the second floor is because below would be the utility room. Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know this one of these apartments like maybe some time ago, and if you can afford it to buy the 2 units, they give you authorization to break some walls and make 1 big unit.
Right.
And maybe in the whole complex, they have maybe 3 or 4 apartments. They did this, but the majority just like Robert said, there's only 1 window in the front, the bathroom, and the kitchen out to the back.
Right.
Let's get back to the issue at hand. Now we have a project for which we need to make a motion. Can we?
Chip was going to do that.
Make a motion.
Well, one question, does this apply to the 7-story building also?
No.
No, this would just kind of set the precedent for the Hampshire and Statler buildings, the identical buildings. The 7-story building is pretty covered in terms of already having accordion shutters. And again, due to the difficulties in installing a removable panel system, we would allow for accordion shutters to go on that building.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Guthrie.
I move to deny HRPV project number 20-001-00189 for certificate of appropriateness. 20-001-00189. Oof.
Oh,
okay, we have a typo, but anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
Forget the echo. For accordion shutter installation for the condominium located at 31 South Gulfview Road, Unit 13, because the applicant is not established by competent substantial evidence that the application is in compliance with the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
Second, Sam.
Seconded by Ms. Fox.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded.
Any
more discussion? All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Now, can I ask one question though? It has no bearing on the vote or anything. The staff can at this point authorize or administratively approve the impact windows. We all know that. Can staff administratively approve the removable shutters as well?
Yeah, so we can do the Lexon panels or the metal corrugated panels, as long as they don't have permanent tracks or the removable armor screens.
Okay, now the reason I'm asking that is because, and I was kind of surprised when you were in your very first portion of your presentation, when you so eloquently describe the features of the building, that the roll down shutters were actually left off of that, and I was waiting for you to say that the roll down shutters are a distinguishing feature of the building.
Yeah,
So
that's very
therefore,
true.
anybody who comes with a permit application to install the removable shutters without the tracks and everything else will almost certainly need to remove those roll down shutters. Does this approval now automatically allow anybody there to remove the roll down shutters if they're going to put in impact windows?
It would. Unfortunately, it would. If this building, in a perfect world, if this building would have come to the board today and had all of its original features, windows, window awnings, doors, everything like that, and they were requesting impact protection, it would be staff's recommendation to go forward with a window impact product or a replacement impact product that did not disturb the shuttering system. They've been largely removed off of the south building already, and there are multiple units on the north building which have already lost them. So, we can talk about that moving forward, whether these shuttering systems are absolutely character defining features that should not be removed. But we just haven't done that in the past. And since this building has lost so many already, I don't know if we have the standing to require people to keep those. Maybe Pam could weigh in on that.
Or not.
Yeah. Or not.
Or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we should be off this item now. We've had the motion and it was a unanimous denial as far as I can tell. So let us move on to item D, which is consideration of a COA for 224 North L Street.
Abraham's going to take it away on this one.
Okay.
Hello.
Abe, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Just a moment. So I'm Abraham Fogel, Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. We're moving on to item D, which is the consideration of a COA for exterior alterations for the structure located at L Street. The subject property is a contributing resource to the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District and is located in the medium-density multifamily residential zoning district, MF30. The property owner is requesting a COA for exterior alterations, specifically in regards to replacing and rearranging the structure's existing windows and doors. The subject property is located on the east side of North L Street between 2nd Avenue North and 3rd Avenue North.
Do we have the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the single-story, single-family residence located at 224 North L Street was constructed circa 1925 in a wood frame vernacular architectural style. Although no architectural drawings of the building are available in the city's property files, a property card from the 1940s and 1950s describes the structure as being of wood frame construction on a pier and slab foundation and having a gable roof with composition and asphalt roof shingles, wood windows, and 2 porches. The rear porch was originally constructed in 1953 with a shed roof and screen openings, and you can see it in the rear part of the drawing where that rear porch was constructed. So this is the structure as it sits today, as visible from North L Street. As you can see, the building retains its wood lap siding and gable configuration. The original windows on the building have been removed for the most part, except for one window, and were replaced with jalousie windows sometime in the past. This photo on the left is from the northeast corner of the property. As you can see, the building features a cross gable roof design. On June 30, 2020, the subject property was issued a building permit 20-1027 for a residential remodel. The scope of work included plumbing and air conditioning upgrades, a bathroom remodel, reframing of wall studs, floor joists, ceiling joists, interior drywall, and installation. On the exterior, the property was approved to reconfigure openings on the north and south elevation of the enclosed rear porch. 4 openings were approved to be replaced with CGI aluminum impact single hung windows. In addition, partial siding replacement was approved to patch the locations where there were currently through the wall air conditioning units. You can see some of those on the picture to the left. And on August 7, 2020, we received a revision to that building permit for additional exterior alterations. The scope of work proposed reconfiguring several openings on the original portion of the structure with new windows and doors. The revision was failed by staff as administrative approval for windows and doors must occur within the original openings for administrative approval. The property owner was advised that the exterior alterations as proposed would require HRPB review. In addition, the property owner was advised of the options that were available at that could be approved at staff level. The property owner chose to proceed with board review. So on the right side of this slide, you can see the remaining original wood double hung window that has a 6/6 pattern. So the city's historic preservation design guidelines provide a guide for compatible window and door replacement for historic structures. Windows and doors are among the most important character defining architectural features, but they are also one of the most commonly replaced features of a building. Generally, replacement products for historic structures should match the original materials and design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Our design guidelines, as you can see on the screen, they provide examples that show the original window and what the successful, most successful, and unsuccessful replacement of that window would be. So in the next slides, I'll just go over the proposed work on each elevation and staff's recommendations. So on the front facade, there are no proposed changes to windows, with the exception of the front door that will be replaced with a fiberglass impact door with a 6 light divided pattern that's shown at the bottom of the screen. And it is staff's analysis that it would be visually compatible with the wood frame vernacular structure. Moving on to the east elevation, the replacement jalousie windows and door will be reconfigured to accommodate a new PGT aluminum impact single hung window with a 6/1 divided light pattern, and a pair of French doors with a 10 light pattern each would be installed. So our analysis of the most successful replacement could be looked at in a couple different ways. So we know this was originally a rear screened porch. So one option could be return to those screen openings. Another option is utilizing casements or rollers that replicate casement windows with divided light patterns. As we know that in wood frame vernacular structures, casements were typically the window type that was utilized in those openings. A French door with a divided light pattern is a compatible choice if installed within the original opening size. Another option that we can look at is an architecturally compatible alternative. So of course, retaining the greatest number of original openings is recommended, as I outlined in the most successful replacement. But however, new opening sizes may be desired for a reconfigured floor plan or for other reasons which the applicant can explain to us. And if that is the case, if new window openings are to be created, our recommendation is that they replicate the dimensions of original window openings that are already present throughout the building. So in this building, it's mostly jalousie replacement windows now, but it generally has proportions that would have accommodated hung windows, such as the remaining hung window that we saw a couple slides ago. And we know these more slender openings in the rear porch, and on the next slide, you will see on the other elevation would have accommodated casement window. So again, if you're creating new openings, we would recommend that you would follow those general proportions of openings already present in the building. So on the north elevation, a rear opening with a jalousie window would be enclosed. 3 openings would be enlarged to accommodate PGT aluminum single hung windows, and a new triangular fixed window would be installed below the gable end. Again, for the most successful replacement, we would recommend remaining within those original opening sizes. So the larger openings would have likely accommodated a 6/6 hung window, such as the original one. The more slender openings would likely had a casement window as shown on the screen. And those openings below the gable end would have likely had a smaller casement window that perhaps had 4 lights. Again, if new openings are desired, we all would recommend, maintaining the greatest amount of original openings possible. But if new openings are desired, our same recommendation remains to take that original opening size and replicate it in those additional openings. On the south elevation, rear openings with a jalousie window would be removed. You would get 4 larger openings to accommodate PGT aluminum single hung windows. However, the original 6/6 wood window would remain. So here it's the same recommendation. If possible, remain within those original opening sizes with the compatible replacement product that matches the original. But if in some openings the board find that it's appropriate to create a new opening size, we would just recommend that you continue with the consistent dimension that was already present in the building. Staff recommended most successful window and door replacement could be approved by staff administratively at permitting. The window and door replacement as proposed cannot be approved, as original opening sizes would be either enclosed or enlarged to accommodate replacement products. In addition, not all replacement products are compatible for the wood frame vernacular architectural style. For example, there are no examples in Lake Worth Beach's historic structures of triangular windows beneath gable ends. Architecturally compatible alternatives, as outlined by staff, may be considered by the board if determined to comply with the design guidelines in our historic preservation ordinance. As proposed, the window and door replacement is not consistent with our historic preservation requirements. There are several options for compatible alternatives. Again, retaining the greatest number of original openings is recommended. However, if new opening sizes are desired, staff recommends utilizing the dimensions of the original openings. And as I previously mentioned, the structure has original openings that will likely accommodate hung windows, casement windows, with a consistent light pattern. Staff also has additional concerns since the window and door replacement is partial. As proposed, the structure would retain a portion of its jalousie windows, would retain the original wood hung window, while the remainder of the windows would have PGT alumina impact, single hung and fixed glass windows. Staff has added additional conditions of approval to regulate the replacement of those windows should they remain. And this will ensure that eventually this property would have a consistent window replacement. In conclusion, the proposed window and door replacement will result in a substantial change to the structure's appearance. Although an improvement from the existing replacement jalousie windows, the proposed window replacement does not successfully replicate the original windows in a manner that complements the architectural significance of the structure. However, the window and door replacement, subject to the conditions of approval, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, historic preservation ordinance, historic preservation design guidelines, and Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. So that concludes staff's presentation. If you would like, I can go through these conditions to explain how they would modify the proposal to be consistent with our regulations, or we can start off by hearing from the applicant.
Could we hear from the applicant? If the applicant is here. Mr. Scheffler?
Hey, good evening, everyone. First, Abraham, thank you for putting all this together. I appreciate all your help on this property. I know it's been about a lot of back and forths, and we're hopefully kind of coming to a conclusion here.
Good. Well, then,
sorry.
Mr. Scheffler, have you read the conditions of approval that we're about to see?
Yes, I have read those, and I'd like to just say a few things about the property before you make your final decision.
Sure.
That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So the property was built in 1925, like Abraham mentioned. There were actually two additions. First, well, one of them being the back porch, which Abraham mentioned. The second is actually this front portion of the property or of the structure. And the reason that I believe that is the case, even though there's no record of it with the city, is that after removing the drywall ceiling in the front room there, that section that's 18 feet wide, you can see the pitched roof, the top pitch, which runs north and south, which would, so the one behind the chimney there. You can see the pitch of that roof, and you can also see that there is a shingle tar paper on that. So that at one point, or when this structure was originally built in 1925, it was only that small area, the layout being unknown. But I imagine that the original design was looking for some privacy within the house because it is such a small structure, and potentially being the reason that these small window sizes were chosen. I would argue that if the structure were built today, or I'm sorry, built as it stands today in 1925, that double hung wood windows would have been a viable option on these windows that we're seeing on the sides that are being replaced. Additionally, building code states that one of the windows in the bedroom requires to be an egress window. So on the south elevation, one of those windows, yes, okay. So on this south elevation, the two larger size windows in the middle, one of those are both egress size windows, and one of them is required. So it would be kind of visually unbalanced if we were to replace only one of them and not the other. And then mirrored on the floor plan is the two windows in the living room, which you can see are is the lofted room that is shown in the picture of the construction site.
Okay. What's your opinion of what the original windows were on the north facade?
I mean, I think Abraham's accurate in that these original windows were most likely windows, yeah, or fixed windows. I imagine they want some ventilation. There's no air conditioning or anything. But
all right, well, let's go on to the conditions and see what we find.
All right, so I'll just do this very quickly. So again, our first condition is just referring to the material of the windows. The proposed windows are aluminum, so they would be in compliance with that first condition. The second condition refers to the divided light pattern. So we do have a remaining original 6/6 hung window. So that recommendation is that the new single hung windows would replicate that appearance.
6/6, yeah.
Yeah. Condition number 3 is really related to the more slender openings. You can see it on the south elevation, also on the north elevation. So our analysis is that those windows likely had a casement originally. There's different ways to replicate a casement window that can be done with horizontal roller or just a single casement or a fixed window if you don't need it, if you're not required to have it operating. Then we would be recommending a divided light pattern to replicate that historic casement appearance. Our fourth condition is standard, that you would utilize a divided light pattern with triangular raised muttons, not utilizing flat muttons or muttons between the glass. Number 5 relates to maintaining the windows within the original openings. If the board finds appropriate that in certain openings, it's okay to have them altered. This would be one of the conditions you would be changing. Number 6 relates to not installing the windows flush with the wall. Again, another standard condition that it would maintain that depth. Number 7, that the windows utilize clear glass. We currently have a moratorium on glass, so the only option is clear. And number 8 is another standard condition. It relates to maintaining all your original sills, trim, and mullions. And if they need to be removed or replaced or new openings are being created, you would replicate their proportions in profile, size, shape, location, and material. And number 9 is the last point I hit with our presentation, that any windows not included in this scope of work would follow this window replacement. So we know some of the windows in the front are not included in the scope of work. That's just to ensure that when they get replaced in the future, they would just follow this approval.
Mr. Scheffler, your thoughts?
yeah, so my request is that I can change the window sizes. Just to reiterate my point again, I think that if this house were built to its full size in 1925, that the homeowners would maybe want a little bit more light let into their living spaces, and that a double hung or single hung window with the correct light pattern would match the style of the wood frame vernacular.
Well, I have a question from the photo that we're looking at now.
Sure.
It appears that the studs are 24 inches on center.
Yes,
If you were to enlarge those windows, would you need to move the stud spacing?
yes, so part of the plan is that basically these are also 2x3 studs.
Oof.
So this whole wall needs to be rebuilt in order to meet code and just be structurally safe. Right now, it can be wiggled by hand. And so in the course of rebuilding this, all the trim, the exterior window trim will need to be replaced either way. We'll just be recreating these window sizes purely because that's what the staff recommends.
Well, how do you intend to rebuild this wall?
With the permit.
It's part of the permit, yes. So this will be this wall, the lower section of the wall will be cut out, and then a 2x4 wall will be built in place with 16-aught center studs, and then flip it up into place.
So does that mean all of the siding would be removed?
We'll try. I'm going to try to save some of the wood. A lot of it is damaged. You might be able to see that in one of the exterior pictures that Abraham has, but you can also see on that interior picture that there is some water damage all around each window. Okay, so yeah, so the lower half of this wall is where most of the damage and bowing is, but you can see some of the cracks around the wood trim. That's where water is getting in. And yeah, it has puddled up towards the bottom of this wall where probably 5 to 7 courses of siding are warped where there's light showing between them. More or less completely rotted out and need to be replaced.
Questions from board members?
Well, yeah, so is the intent then, it looks like that's a version of drop siding, I believe, right? On there right now?
It's a pine, yeah, it's a solid pine 3/4 number 105.
Right, it looks like it has maybe a lap edge, a drop for the lap edge to overlap on. Are you going to replace then the siding with the same type of siding? You're going to put wood back on this?
Yes, the same. They still make the same profile. This one's tongue and groove, but now they have a shiplap version of it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a good start. And also, I'm glad that Abraham brought up the window details because regardless of what we put in there, the only thing that's going to make this thing retain its character is to maintain these heavy details of trim. But the trim is very thick. It's at least a 6/4 right now, I think. And it also has that nice wood drip cap, which apparently isn't working very well at this point.
Yes.
And then the sill is pretty deep too. Plus it has the shutters are nice. I mean, everything about the old detailing of the house is really pretty beautiful. The brackets are nice. The whole thing is nice. So I think if you rebuild it with a 2x4 wall, utilizing that trim, that makes a big difference. I certainly understand there's no way you can keep those slot windows on the bedroom side of the house because, as you said, you've got to have a egress window. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think it would be better to have those windows to be the same rather than to be one skinny one and one wide one. That to me doesn't make the pattern any better. I don't like the gable, the triangular window up in the gable. That would drive me nuts. And honestly, the only reason I'm saying that, if you stay with that interior shot, if you go back to that interior shot, it's really beautiful. I mean, the whole house has a great patina to it. I'm amazed that those are only 2x3s, but anyhow, and I would suggest, why don't you just replace, well, first of all, the triangular window drive me nuts because the pitch is different from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably my OCD breaking loose, but that would drive me crazy. But then the other thing that I like about this is those two little clear story windows that line up with the windows below. I mean, I think those are nice. And maybe it's possible to, I'm not going to try to redesign this for it, but I'm saying, I think those are nice if they were if they remain, rather than putting a triangular window up there.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for your comments. I mean, I'm open to suggestions. The issues that I have with the 2 windows up top, and I hear what you're saying about the mismatch of the angle of the triangular window. I'm a mechanical engineer myself, so I can get OCD about some certain geometrical things often.
Are any of these windows you're going to replace wood?
No, they're not. They're not wood. Are you saying the existing windows or?
Well, I see over here, it says remaining original wood double hung window.
Right.
One window in the picture.
That
the
is
picture.
the last remaining original window in the home.
So there's no way we can salvage a wood window?
Well, that wood window is not scheduled to be replaced.
So
the pros plan.
Right. So currently, Garrett's plan, he would maintain that window. That's one of the windows that would not be replaced.
And that's
if we lose all these wood windows, I hate to see that.
Yeah, no, we're not replacing any wood windows. We're only jalousie windows are being replaced.
Right.
Mr. Scheffler, quick question. You're on a 25-foot lot?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay.
I think it's a 20-foot house, maybe 21 feet, and there's one
Right.
house on the left side facing the front of the house.
Pardon one more time. I keep you going in and out a little bit.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll speak up. Maybe it's a 21-foot house. And it's a 25-foot lot. There's one alley on the left side of the house if you're facing the front of the house. So the right side is right up on the property line of the neighbor.
Okay.
And just the block north of this, or I'm sorry, the lot north of this was just approved for demolition. You guys have, I believe this board approved in January for demolition and building of a 6-unit structure.
Oh, I know where you are. Okay, I could do the house in my head. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a modular kind of shipping container style home.
Right.
That was also kind of the thinking around the triangle window is that, even though it kind of is against, I understand that triangle windows didn't exist in 1925, but it'd be a slight modern element to the home that would kind of add some contrast to it, and in accordance with that modular flat roof building, shipping container style structure going up right next door. In addition, on the triangle window is, if you look through the pictures of the wood frame vernacular houses in the Lake Worth historical guidelines. Specifically, thanks.
Back to the picture.
Yeah, if we look at a picture of maybe the
We'll pull it up for us just a second.
Thank you. There are a lot of triangular features in gable ends. That's not uncommon.
Right.
It's actually it adds a little bit of that kind of quintessential detail. So here you see a pitched porch. Here you can see kind of another triangular feature, even in this blue.
Again, I understand exactly what you're saying, but if you look at all these triangular elements, they all match the pitch and they step back. Like, for example, that drawing right there is a perfect example of it. I think this triangular window is just out of place. I mean, it just doesn't look like it's part of the house. And I understand what you're saying about, I'm not familiar with the building that you're talking about that's going up right now. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you need to make any gesture to that thing at all. Just keep this house original, keep it. And believe me, I love modern architecture. I'm just saying this house stands by itself. It's fine. It has enough quirks and goofiness about it where you don't need to add something like that, I don't think.
I have to agree, regardless of what else we decide for this project. I do think that triangular window is a non-starter that just does not work with the rest of it.
I have a question for staff. Jordan, can you go back to the slide you had up about the windows, please?
Do you know which one?
The guidelines, when you had the windows in the guidelines? The one that showed the actual photograph of windows. You had it on with the little houses. It was below the drawing.
Oh, okay. You were talking about the wood frames.
Yes. I noticed in a lot of them, my office included, where I have the original windows, are very similar to the one on the bottom right, where I have 9/1. Since there's a privacy fence on each side of this 25-foot lot, where basically you're only going to see the tops of windows, and then when you have the 6-story go next to it, you're probably not going to see that little house at all set in the back. Would staff have an issue, or would the ordinance or guidelines, whatever, allowing 6/1 like he has in the drawings rather than 6/6 on the north and south side of the house?
So that would fall in the realm of an architecturally compatible alternative. 6/1s are a pattern that we did see in this style, so that could be an option for your consideration.
Because I see that the gentleman had in his drawing 6/1s. I mean, they're a pain in the butt to clean, first of all, but to have it on both top and bottom of your windows, I'm like, oh, I'm just saying you're not going to really see them from the street. The front, I agree with, it'd be kind of appropriate.
And again, what we're kind of laying out is most successful, and then you can kind of look at compatible alternatives, which are taken. So we know this structure originally had a 6/6, but we know that other structures with this style and from this time period had a 6/1. So that's where you may say, okay, the 6/1 is a compatible alternative.
Okay.
Okay, I would agree with that, Mr. Dorinzo, that
Thank you.
the 6/1 as opposed to the 6/6 makes
Should have
sense.
lost that window.
Board Chairman Feldkamp, this is William Waters. I'd like to interrupt for a moment. Abraham, what is the setback from the side on this house? I'm getting a little concerned that we may have a fire code issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Which will likely limit what can be replaced and how, especially with the siding. And that may need to be addressed before the board can make a final decision as to what is appropriate and what is not.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
So,
At the zero lot line, none of that works.
I have
it's a side thing. Yeah.
Because if it's less than 3 feet setback, I don't believe he can replace the siding with wood. It'll have to be a fireproof product.
Well, plus the openings.
That I didn't get there yet. They'll have to be fireproofed as well.
Well, you can't, they're too big. I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot of issues there that don't meet fire code. Do you have a survey on the presentation anywhere?
I'm just pulling up the issue permit, and I'll see if we have something there.
If I should have brought it up or not.
How far is the setback on the larger building?
So just give me one moment.
That wouldn't have anything to do with it. You're talking the distance from his house to the fence.
Oh, well, here it is. I mean, well, this is a sketch.
25-foot lot.
This is, according to this, it's 3'6" on each.
So on one side and then on the
Jesus,
south
right
side, it's pretty close.
It's 1
Yeah,
foot.
that's where, that's a problem because that's where the bedrooms are, right? Or no,
Yeah. That's where the bedrooms are.
Now we can also look at.
You can't have an egress window with a 1 foot setback.
To it, because if it does maintain the minimum fire separation, not too specific here, but you know, it looks like it's at about 6 or 7 where the south property is, and our survey tells us there's 1 foot. So I could be wrong, but I think it's in the ballpark of 5 feet that you need a separation. So it looks like maybe that south property has an additional setback, so they might be okay. But
yeah, there is space. There's space to walk between there.
But, well, wait a minute though, but I mean, that's not the way the code works.
No.
Because of the building code, go back to the survey, that's the most important drawing right now.
Also, the plan was already approved by the building department to have the bedroom on this side with an egress window.
Really? I'm really surprised about that.
Yeah, I think it might be, it's grandfathered in there like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with William. I mean, I don't see, and I honestly, this has nothing to do with the design. I like the house. I just see a problem there. I think you need to confirm that with the building department, because to me, that's a hazard. I mean, that's something that is typically not allowed. And it doesn't, if they're saying that, I mean, you're supposed to have separation from your property line, not from the building adjacent to you. So the issue there is you're right on the property line.
And if
What's
that's an
written
egress
there, 3
window,
feet from property
even
fence?
even if the window complies with egress requirements, you step out of the window and you only have 1 foot to escape from.
Right. Right.
Can that be handled with a variance since the house has been there since 1925?
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, this is a building code issue that I think usually fire safety issues are not, you can't get variances on.
Right.
Unless you do some kind of a, I mean, I don't know what I don't know what you do. Honestly, I'm not really sure. This needs some research.
So basically, are there no walls inside the house? No interior walls?
There is a wall. There are interior walls.
So the bedrooms originally were, we don't know.
Yeah, the bedroom was originally in that area. There were 2 bedrooms. There were 2 bedrooms in that area, actually, which are being combined into 1 bedroom. Abraham, do you have the floor plans?
Yeah, pull that up.
I hate to say it, but we may be forced to defer this till we get some clarity.
I mean, I think the biggest issue right now is to make sure you can build it.
This is the HVAC plan, but I guess this works. So, so this is the existing bedroom as the south side where the property line has a foot of clearance. So really,
Can there be egress through that existing front room from the bedroom? It's not directly to the exterior.
Well, I'm looking at the new plan right now. That's the one that has all the windows called out on it, right?
yes.
Okay, and you've got a small French door opening into the bedroom, which is cool. But the thing is that you can't. I mean, you can't exit through that front room because that's exiting through another space.
Yeah.
And I mean, is it at all possible? Could you flip this and mirror image it?
It's possible.
I mean, that doesn't help you with the. It doesn't help you with the. All it's going to help you with is it allows you to put a bedroom on the outside of the building. The problem is your living room then still has the same issues with the windows.
The living room would then not be able to have any windows on that side.
Right. I mean, or you could have them, but the problem, I mean, I'm just trying to think. I've never seen a house like this built basically on a 0 lot line, which is essentially what we're doing. And that wall would need to be rated, completely rated, and with virtually no penetrations in it.
Yeah.
And the penetration would be.
Board members, I've called our building official and he and I are on the same page. This application needs to be tabled until next week for dates, next month for date certain to deal with the fire issues.
Okay.
Openings that are on that 1 foot setback wall side cannot be made any bigger without them being fire rated. Also, the wooden replacement of the siding also has to be fire rated to be at a 1 foot setback. The minimum setback to avoid that is 3 feet from the property line. So we need to work with the applicant to come up with another scheme on how to deal with this, and we'll bring it back next month.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, man. I mean, I get it, but
yeah,
that's the bigger issue.
I mean,
a little house, but it looks like we need to make a motion to table this, to defer to the next meeting. Can someone make a motion?
Chip?
The motion would be to continue the item into the next meeting.
I make a motion to continue the item to the next meeting, project number 20001000186 224 North L Street.
Can I hear a second?
I second it.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harris, I think, first. Moved and seconded, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is tabled to the next meeting. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, talk to you next month.
Alrighty. Good luck. Let's move on to item number 5. Item number 5, I suspect, will be given by Mr. Waters.
Actually, I'm going to do the presentation this
Okay.
evening, Chairman.
All right. And I understand you would like to reverse the order of the presentation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll walk you all through it. No worries. So did you want to read the item or did you want me to, Mr. Chairman?
You may, please.
Board and Aaron, you've had some late people join. I think we can just leave them, but I just wanted to let you know that there has been additional people join this meeting.
Their item passed. They were for the second tax exemption. So I tried calling them before their item. I'm just gonna give them a ring on the phone.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys knew.
Okay, thanks.
So this item is a consideration of an ordinance to Chapter 23 of the Land Development Regulations. It is regarding changes, changes to commercial vehicle parking, open air operations, temporary banner signage for new construction, landscaping requirements, and allowing artificial turf within the city, which is currently prohibited. The majority of these items are part of the series of amendments that were prioritized by the City Commission in March of 2020. The artificial turf was a commissioner-initiated item. So what we're going to do this evening is, as you can see, this ordinance covers several articles in the code. We're actually going to start in the one that we think that folks are the most interested first, which is the artificial turf component. This item is located in Exhibit G of the ordinance, the proposed text changes. And this proposed amendment would allow for artificial turf within the city, subject to requirements related to location, quality, and installation. And so I wanted to walk you through some of the research that staff did for this item, because artificial turf can be controversial. There are pros to it and cons, just like everything. Some of the pros are it does maintain its color and appearance year round. It's not damaged by pests. It may be lower maintenance than traditional sod applications. There are no fertilizer or pest treatments. There are some new, less toxic products on the market with alternate fill available to crumb rubber, which is that is the fill that a lot of folks are concerned with. There are some products are now made from recycled materials, and it is a semi-pervious surface when installed correctly. Some of the cons are that it can be damaged and worn down with heavy foot traffic over time. The turf itself can be 50 to 100 degrees hotter than the ambient air temperature around it. It does require regular washing and raking of the product to maintain it. This product can accumulate dirt and odor from leaves and pet hair and animal waste. So it does need, there is maintenance involved with it. Some products that are on the less expensive end can leach into soils, and there are concerns with runoff from the crumb rubber infill, which might be harmful. Also, while some artificial turf is made from recycled materials, artificial turf itself is not recyclable. And it is also not a fully pervious surface akin to soil or landscaping area. Incorrectly installed, this material could pool water, which could lead to mosquito areas. So staff took all this research, all the pros, all the cons. We looked at best practices of adjacent or cities in Palm Beach County. And we kind of came up with these 3 questions. Where should it be allowed? How should it be maintained and permitted if it is allowed? And what quality of materials should be required? to, again, maximize the pros and mitigate the cons of the use and application of the material. So on the where, in the subject ordinance, staff has proposed a series of locations, which for your consideration. So the first application would be in single family and duplex properties in the rear yard only and not visible from the right of way. The second application would be between parking strips in the front yard of non-conforming properties previously constructed with off-street parking utilizing 60% or more of the width of the yard. And I'm going to go back to the previous slide. You can see here's an example of parking where the parking takes up a large portion of the lot. This particular driveway is in Delray Beach, and they use the artificial turf application between the parking strips. If this is used in this way, it would require review of the DRO or applicable review board, and would be reviewed for consistencies with the city's land development requirements, visual appropriateness, and historic districts would require a certificate of appropriateness for the HRPB. The third application, potential application, staff has in the ordinance is on the rooftop terraces. And then the fourth one was as part of a plan development in a recreation or an amenity area. Again, you can see this type of application here in this center photograph. Now, we also specify in the ordinance where artificial turf shall not be installed. And that should not be installed as part of any landscape buffer or landscape area required by this article. In our research, artificial turf is not landscaping. It does not perform as landscaping. It's hotter than landscaping, and it does not have the same pervious characteristics as landscaping would. It should not be installed within a permanent drainage feature. Again, it's got a different percolation rate, and it should not be in any public right of way. So the second question we asked, it was how. So again, looking at best practices, looking at other cities, what did they allow and how did they do it? So we said a landscape permit should be required for anyone wishing to install this material in the city. It should be required with 2 inspections, an inspection at the fill and an inspection at final application. We would also require an affidavit of maintenance. A barrier would be required between the artificial turf and the landscaping. And then the subsurface material specifications, we would say that crumb rubber would not be permitted within the city. So going on to what type would we allow? We would want to establish some minimum quality standards. And specifically what is concerning is that there's different quality of this product. So there is a standard that would allow this product to be disposed under normal conditions at any U.S. landfill. That's a technical requirement that we can look for so that it would not leach lead into the groundwater. Again, appearance standards, artificial turf shall consist of a green, lifelike blades of grass that emulates natural turf and the look and color, and shall have a minimum pile height of 1 to 1.5 inches, and shall have a minimum tufted weight of 80 ounces per square yard. And these are the quality appearance standards that we have garnered from other cities and speaking to some folks in industry. Again, we would insist upon a 10-year warranty, and that the site itself would have to meet drainage standards within the city. So if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, we can have a discussion. We can go into board discussion on this particular item and then take public comment, or if you'd like, we can finish the presentation all the way through at your discretion.
Let's have comment on this particular item and finish it off before we go to the other sections.
Sounds good. So this concludes that part of the presentation. If you have any questions about the specific language that we have included in the ordinance backup in Exhibit G, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Aaron, could you give us an idea of the surrounding communities, municipalities, and sort of who has totally banned it and who has apparently Delray has brought in some standards? because you're showing those, but who else around us?
And just to name a few, West Palm, Boca, and Delray have allowed it with restrictions. Most have not allowed it in the front yard. Some of them allow it in a commercial application. So one of the areas, I'll go back to the slide, which had the areas that we were discussing allowing it. This would be as part of a planned development in a recreation or amenity area. And you all have seen planned developments. This is where it's usually has a mixed use or a multi-story component. It comes before you. It has an ordinance that regulates it, and it's a whole project that is approved, the aesthetics, the paint, the architecture, all at once. So it would be something kind of like, just an idea, it would be something like this. In the center is how we think that would be. And then I'm not sure, I don't believe West Palm would allow the parking strips. So I know Delray does. We were thinking the parking strips might work for the city because we do have several, if we're going to allow it, this might be a good application for it because we do have several multifamily properties, which really the whole front is concrete or asphalt pavement. And so if we were to allow it, that might be a potential location to give a greener appearance and improve the drainage of those properties because the whole front yard is entirely impervious. So that's why that is very specifically locked down. And then of course, we talked about the rooftop terraces. And
I don't understand why we have any jurisdiction over rooftop terraces. I mean, if I wanted to put artificial turf down on my balcony, that's a maintenance item, or that's like being a carpet on the balcony.
So if it's something that you can't see, we probably wouldn't know if it's there or not. If it's artificial turf and it's a part of a building or a planned development, it would need to be approved as part of that particular development. And you might be able to allow for that material now through the planned development review. But the artificial turf itself has fill and other things involved. This is not outdoor carpet. Outdoor carpet is a whole other product. So I would say sometimes what you see on the older applications of balconies is that outdoor carpet, where artificial turf has a fill and a drainage. There's a drainage system component to it that's different. So I'm sorry, Chip, I don't think I fully answered your question. It's basically Delray, Boca. There are a few others, West Palm, and they have allowed it with a lot of restrictions, and many of which we looked at and implemented as part of this draft code. We kind of took the most restrictive of everything and looked at that. So there are, I know Pam can maybe speak to this better. I know it was brought up at the Planning and Zoning Board as well, that for a backyard, there are some cases related to it. And we are looking into that, some litigation related to application in yards. So we're going to be continuing to research that prior to City Commission.
Is there currently litigation on this subject?
Yeah, neighbors litigating against neighbors with yard applications, and a lot of it seems to be related right now. From what I recall, our discussion was related to the crumb fill, because that can, depending, it's old tires basically. So that's why we have proposed in the ordinance to not permit that substance. So,
Aaron, quick question. How is the municipality to address existing homes that have it in their front yards? I know we have a few on our street. Where do we go from here?
So those applications are not permitted now. They did not receive a permit, and just like anything that is not permitted, and they would not be permitted under this proposed ordinance. So okay, they would be subject, ultimately, they would need to remove the material.
So just like we deal with windows and other things, the homeowners need to be aware of this once we figure out what we're going to do. And I won't even go there. I appreciate the research you've done into this. Thank you.
And really, it's up to the community if they, I mean, staff wasn't asked to go and look into this. We did our, we conducted our technical research. This is, if we're going to allow it, we feel it should be allowed with a substantial number of restrictions.
Sure.
What
And
was
these-
the arguments given at the P&Z board meeting?
So the P&Z did not make a recommendation on this. They actually asked for this to come back, and they wanted to hear what you all said and the tree board said. They have one meeting prior to first reading, and so they voted to basically not make a recommendation at this time on this, and then they voted to approve the rest of the ordinance.
Aaron, is there a percentage of permeable area that you can put this in?
Yeah, so in the zoning code, for any lot, we have a maximum amount of impermeable surface by the zoning code. And so we do have the ability, you may recall from the summer when we did some LDR changes, that we kind of codified our practice, which was if you had a semi-pervious surface, you could get a 50% credit towards your impervious surface. So for example, set pavers or other types of materials, you would be given those wouldn't be considered impervious, but they're not fully pervious. They're not fully equivalent to sand or soil or landscaping. So in this case, this would be given a 50% credit.
Does this
Provided
take the place of, say, I'm looking at the driveway now. If they didn't put turf down there, they'd put rocks.
They could have put rocks, or they could have put actual turf or ground cover. Some people are putting ground cover that is more, sometimes the underneath of the cars can burn turf. So sometimes some people are applying different types of ground cover, mulch, rock.
Thank you.
I have a question. I apologize if this has been dealt with in a previous meeting when I wasn't involved, but what are the advantages of this stuff? I mean, why are we looking at this right now? What is this something that all of a sudden there's a big demand for within Lake Worth, or?
I think we've had a lot of homeowners, not a lot, but there are homeowners in the area that have installed it in their properties, and it's prominent. There's one on a corner, and I think it just started a little ball rolling in our community regarding artificial turf.
Okay, so there's no real, I mean, the city, for example, doesn't want to necessarily install this as part of their palette for city projects, right? We're talking strictly about private homeowners.
Right, it doesn't die.
And this is not initiated for any city projects
Okay,
at all.
all right.
So this was initiated, as I said, it was initiated by a commissioner and for discussion based on some folks in the community who were interested in it. So we actually, in this ordinance, we don't allow it to be applied to public recreation areas or ball fields. Some of those applications are permitted in other codes, and we did not recommend that for the city.
I have a question. Like I mentioned, when we start the meeting, we have a lot of emails, a lot of concerns, neighbors and citizens about the city. And my question will be, how you come up with the regulations? Did you ask for different neighbors to participate in these regulations, and why now? And eventually, we pass these rules and regulations, who is going to enforce? Already the employees, the workers, they're really too much work to do. There will be way to enforce this, and how will we control these people that can apply? Or that's my concern is, did you talk to different neighbors and residents about these regulations, and did you listen the inputs to come with these regulations? And thank you very much for the hard work you did, by the way.
So we did not talk to neighbors, but what we did do is we surveyed other municipalities and how they allow it, and are their regulations working for them? What is their experience of applying the regulations that they do have? So we kind of took the more restrictive ones, and we combined it, and we are proposing it. And again, this is not a staff initiated item. This was a commissioner initiated request. and to move it forward for discussion. So really, it's really up to the city commission and for you all.
Maybe do you think we need a little bit time, maybe expand this information for the residents who are concerned about this, and maybe can talk to you, or maybe we can open this discussion. They can put the inputs they can, because it's a lot of residents, a lot of concern, and like Mr. Harris said, I don't see a lot of residents rushing to install this turf, artificial turf. And maybe if we have enough, maybe we can relax a little bit and talk to the different neighbors and ask what they concern, and maybe we can add to this regulation the concerns they have.
Well, right now, it's not an approved landscape product, period, in our city, correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
No, but it's being used. Is Dave still here? Can he kind of chime in on this?
Here to Dave.
While we're waiting on Dave, I'd like to say that I've had several people ask if they could put this in areas of their yard that under trees where it's very difficult to get grass to grow and things like that, and the maintenance. And then the other one of the other concerns was the cost of watering. You know, the price of water is going, and the scarcity and things like that has been an issue. So I've had concerns about that. I have seen it installed on one particular property on the ocean in Manalapan, and they also had a problem with, you know, with keeping the grass looking good over there. But they applied it all the way around the entire mansion structure and made a mini putt-putt golf out of the entire thing. So the questions that I'm hoping to find out are regarding, as I'm reading some of those emails that came through the public comment, having to do with environmentally sensitive. When you say it's 50 to 100 degrees hotter than ambient air, well, what is soil? I mean, soil is 20 to 80 degrees, or 30 to 80 degrees hotter than the ambient air, and then also the leaching issue. At some point when we were talking about this, we were talking about not using the crumb rubber underneath it. Well, there was a time when they were bringing in crumb rubber to use in all of our playgrounds so that the kids don't get hurt, and with nothing on top of it. So I don't know, did they find that there was an issue with that and they had to pull it all out again, or what is the history behind that?
I can speak to the history on the crumb rubber in the playgrounds. It was widely criticized by the residents, the families. The kids would play in the crumb rubber, which in that case was chip tires. It smelled like, the storage bay at Tire Kingdom, and the kids would be filthy black with rubber dust. So it was really a very short, maybe 2 years, and then it was all removed at a great expense. So it's not used.
Thank you.
To the request, I get a lot of calls, not so much lately, but within the past few months, quite a few calls, maybe 2 or 3 a month, asking if it's allowed, and I tell them it's not. I know there's a couple properties that I've told them it's not allowed, and they've done it anyway. So I haven't heard of anybody in the public, other than the few people that ask about it, wanting artificial turf. So you guys read the comments, they're all against it, so.
But Dave, horticulturally, how do you feel about it?
Well, you're asking my opinion. I don't like it. I don't think it's not landscape, like Aaron said. It's not a living product. There are other alternatives. There's quite a few ground covers out there. There are other options than artificial turf. It's not, it looks fake. It's not a real product. It has zero environmental benefits. It's not a habitat for insects. It basically kills the soil underneath. It suffocates it. So if you have artificial turf for a long period of time and you remove it, you have to rehabilitate that soil. You would have to probably get in there with a tiller and aerate it and add organic amendments and really try and bring the soil back to life. It's not considered by the University of Florida a Florida-friendly landscape product. In our ordinance, we require that we follow the Florida-friendly landscape guidelines, and numerous publications they have recommend against it.
What about the application that was shown in the pictures in between parking strips or as part of a parking to maintain pervious? You would be against that as well?
No, I think that's probably the best application I've seen of artificial turf other than like a rooftop terrace.
But again, that's in the front yard and was not one of the issues that it would not be visible from the street.
The code does mention that in 2 places that I know of, but it does specifically allow it in between those parking strips. For the reasons Aaron said, that it's very difficult to grow regular turf in between those narrow areas. Our other option would be rock, which isn't much better in my opinion. So it's a suitable application. It's not the best. The best would be, of course, a ground cover or an artificial turf, a combination of mulch and ground cover. But it's an acceptable application in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to understand, I mean, that's, Dave is a horticulturalist, that's his perspective, and you ask him what his thought was as a horticulturalist. But you all have to decide what you want to do for your community. And have that discussion and then make that recommendation to the city commission for consideration. And maybe the consideration is like Ozzy said, maybe you want to say to the city commission, we're not sure, we'd like to hear from more neighbors on their thoughts on that. Maybe more public outreach is needed. We've been asked to bring this to the city commission, so we're not going to do a full public outreach on this particular topic until it goes for discussion before the city commission.
Yeah, but since this is an historic board, historically, they didn't have artificial turf.
So you would be asked to review anytime there was application in a historic district. It would require a certificate of appropriateness. So you would review it specifically for that. And I also will mention, just also for Mr. Harris, so he understands why you're seeing this. The Historic Resources Board is also the local planning agency. And so you all are the planning and zoning board for the historic districts. So anytime there's a code change in the city, you review all of the proposed land development regulation changes in addition to the planning and zoning board, which will provide input on the areas that are not in a historic district. So that's why you're seeing this, that you may be wondering, well, this is not a case, why is this before me? So just for clarification.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Like Judy, I mean, I was looking at this ironically. I mean, I think it's ironic that a board that is trying to preserve certain natural qualities in all these buildings, are now looking at something that's frankly just lazy. I mean, it's just laziness. And I don't know. I mean,
for me, thank you, David, to teach us a lot of things in this thing. Sometimes we spend a lot of time in windows and doors, and this is really basic for us to, and we're supposed to be the example for the other cities around us. Let's fight for clear air, for the water and natural things, and to start thinking about it. This is a bad thing for me after listening to David very clearly, and he knows that I know you're the master in this thing, an expert, and I think as we had to, I don't know, we had to talk about it more seriously because it's going to affect no us, just the kids and the new generation.
Can I bring up something out of all of the pictures that were shown before with the used sort of as fill in between concrete strips or concrete patio stones or things like that? The least desirable was the center picture where it showed large expanses of it, almost like a yard. It seems almost that, and I'm wondering if there's a way that it could be worded so that it could be used aesthetically. So, you know, the one in the middle to me looks the worst. I mean, if somebody wanted to put that on the rooftop, who cares? Nobody can see it. But the applications on both the right and the left side, where they're filling in for concrete, which everybody has stated that it's going to be difficult to grow something in there and maintain it in a good fashion, and also that's the least undesirable from the horticulturist standpoint. Again, the only thing that if we could say that that could not be in strips of more than 18 inches, or, you know, cannot be used for yard cover like a lawn, and can only be used aesthetically to fill in between concrete and maximum of 18 inches. I don't know if we could go with that type of a restriction on it, because it's there are places I think that it probably is appropriate.
Well, I think when you're dealing with the new construction, you're dealing with a lot of the multi-unit projects. I think that picture depicted like a little barbecue area in the middle of in the center of the building, or a little putt green on something. And that's more of a commercial use. I think that was trying to show than what we're dealing with in our residential historic neighborhood.
But once again, there are other organic materials that could be used there.
Correct.
Mulch as much as anything.
Could I ask for consensus? Does everybody here kind of agree that it is inappropriate for an entire lawn?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Okay, is anybody
Why don't we
disagree
walk
with that?
through where, Chip, if you don't mind, and then you guys can just give consensus, and then that might give you some shape to a motion. Because I think what you're talking about is this item, which is as part of the plan development in the rear, in the amenity area. That was what we're discussing. So I think you have consensus that that's a no, right? That you don't want to allow that you want them to look for alternate materials.
Could you rephrase that? Are you talking about front yards?
No, we did propose to allow it in front yards in this ordinance. So I think you can definitely, I think there's consensus from what I'm hearing for your motion is that you don't want it to be allowed in front yards.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Backyard.
So do you want it to be allowed in backyards, not visible right of way?
You know, I don't want to tell people what to do, honestly, but again, I just think it's to me, you know, I just quickly Googled this stuff when I got this in the packet, and I mean, obviously it's, you know, it's yet half the people are installers or sellers, and they think it's the greatest thing on earth, and then the other half are people who don't like it because they would prefer to see it something planted and natural. I tend to be in the second group. I want to see. I think there are other ways you can deal with stuff like that. Places below trees, for example, ground covers grow in shade. I definitely don't think it's the right thing for a front yard. And in the backyard, I would discourage it, but I know we can't tell people not to do it. But what I think we should consider too is that if you look at the city as a whole organism, we're trying to reduce the heat in the city, and this is doing nothing to reduce the heat. I mean, it's creating more heat in the backyards of a bunch of properties, which is, you know, it's just not going to be good. I mean, so anyhow, that's my 2 cents on it.
I agree 100% with that.
Okay, so we're saying then the consensus appears to be, I don't want to overstate, I just want to help you shape your motion. It doesn't matter to us where you go with this. So I just want to get you where you're going. They're saying no backyards. We're saying not in the planned elements. Now, what about the parking strip application?
In a front yard.
In a front yard.
In a front yard, it could be
Bernard with the
measurement. I'm not saying, I can see uses for this in the backyard for kids to roll around on. I guess it's okay. I mean, a lot of people don't
Dogs.
think.
Oh God, you know, it's not okay because everybody loves soccer, especially the little kids.
But I mean, maybe we could.
First place
Maybe
to
we
play
could
is the artificial turf.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some split on the backyard. So how about the parking strips in the front yard? What's the consensus?
Aaron, I think on the parking strips, it's all about non-conforming properties. Well, as time goes by, non-conforming properties will come in front of the board or come in front of P&Z, and a different solution will be found. I don't think that they're necessary, even in non-conforming parking strips in front of non-conforming properties. I don't see a need for it.
Do you guys feel like you have consensus? No on that one?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yes.
I would
All
say
right.
blanket no in the front yard.
Okay, all right, no in the front yard in general. Okay, now on rooftop terraces.
But I don't know. I don't. I can mention something. I don't think that we have the authority to start making all these changes.
Well, right.
Well,
Yeah,
which
but
you
right
do have
now
the
it's not
authority.
approved.
Right, you do have the authority to make a recommendation.
Maybe
So
maybe recommendations, but that would be all.
yeah, well, if we get to the point where we're going through the list, where I'm trying to get you to is if we go through the list and you don't want anything that staff's proposed, then maybe your recommendation to the board is to not recommend approval of artificial turf and not allow it within the so
I have no problem with it on a rooftop, but I just don't think that that's part of our purview.
Why don't planning and zoning make some decisions and we can work with based on that?
They're looking to us.
Well, we are planning and zoning.
Go ahead, Pam.
Right. And also, can I add this? Planning and zoning said they were torn just like you are, and they wanted to hear what your thoughts were as well. And they wanted to give the tree board an opportunity to meet and discuss it as well. And I think it's good that you're affirmatively saying you don't want it in the front yard, although we're not proposing it. If the city commission should say, well, what do you guys think about the front yard? We will be able to say HRPB definitely was against having artificial turf in the front yard. So it's even though that's not on the list, I think it's important that you're giving
Does that include Bernard's between the strips? I like the between the strips thing. The picture on the left.
That, yes.
So so that
Where's that?
what we've heard from consensus from you all so far is that nothing in the front yard, not even between the strips.
No, please. No.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe you guys want to take a little internal poll on that. So rooftop terraces, we could address through the plan development. We could allow it through a plan development review. So if that's okay, then I think that's important to say if that's okay. Do you guys feel like that? From what I heard, you guys said that's okay, right?
Well, when you're looking at patios, balconies, terraces that are above the second floor, it really doesn't deal with landscaping. Like Bill said, it's carpet.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really not carpet, but I get your point.
But you know what I'm saying? It's that carpet. We're a historic district. We're the Historic Preservation Board. It's fake grass in a historic district. My opinion, I don't think so.
Now, Aaron, I agree, but Aaron, in a plan development, who makes the decisions? Who approves plan developments?
So in a plan development on a rooftop terrace, what we might do is leave something in there that said artificial turf could be approved through that process on a rooftop terrace.
Well, how about a recreation or amenity area within a plan development? Does a plan development come in front of HRPD?
Yes, it does, if it's within the historic district. So for example, the Gulf Stream will come before you as a plan development.
So HRPB would have a chance to concentrate on artificial turf around the swimming pool at the Gulf Stream.
Yes.
Right, or a putting green.
But again, all of that is above grade, so it has nothing to do with landscaping. It's not covering up dirt, soil. as part of a straw poll, I would probably be in favor of not permitting any of it.
Yeah.
Thinking that it could come back in 3 years. Now, I need to do some research on my own. Perhaps I'm a Luddite. Perhaps I haven't followed the development of artificial turf so that it's now some wonderful material that I didn't know it was. But for right now, I have a hard time wanting to recommend approval of any of these items.
Right.
And that's fine. You know, recommending denial is fine. If, you know, it's wherever you want to go. So if that's where you're at, I think you should do that.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, you recommend that we can vote on your decision.
I'm so sorry, Ozzy, I didn't hear that.
And I said, can you mention that? And we can, even other ways, like the chairman said, we really don't want to, we don't want to take this responsibility. We don't know really where we get into.
So if I can just back up a little bit and explain the process a little bit. So how we gather public input on our land development code changes is we go to our 2 advisory boards, which are you all. You're the local planning agency for the historic districts and the planning and zoning board. We collect comment, public comment, and board comment and direction. Then we compile that into a staff report, and then we present that to the city commission on first reading to get their comment, feedback, and we present your comment. So whatever you decide tonight will be presented to the city commission on first reading as your recommendation on this particular issue.
So
we have to reject.
So someone might make a motion to deny Article 6 landscape regulations, artificial turf. How would that motion read?
Could you make a motion to not recommend Exhibit G to the city commission? I think that would be easiest, unless Pam has a better.
No, and I think that's kind of what planning and zoning did. They made a recommendation to approve all of the amendments except for amendment, except for Exhibit G. And we took Exhibit G out. So I think it will be consistent with what they've done.
All right.
Just take it out.
What if, can I offer something here? What, is there any language that could be put in that any use of artificial turf would just have to go in front of the board, and somebody would have to come and prove to this board that it is necessary in their particular application, wherever it is. Otherwise, it is totally denied. And if somebody says we want it in our backyard, well, show us what you got, why you're putting it there, and we can make a decision as a board. And it's therefore we're not, all of these things, the pieces between the strips, if they showed that in a grand landscape architecture scheme where the rest of the entire property is all landscape, not with sod or grass, but with foliage and things like that, and then all they have is just a strip of concrete or the decorative concrete, and they want to put the strips in there, they would be able to come in front of this board, and we'd say, yeah, we'll allow that on this particular one.
So Chip, if you had consensus on this item, on your suggestion, the way the motion would read, it would read that you're recommending that the city commission you're not recommending approval to the city commission of Exhibit G, but if the city commission wished to take action, that you would insert the requirement that a COA would be required for all applications in the historic district.
That sounds about right. I don't know what everybody else.
Did you write that down?
Yes, somebody write that down.
Come on now. What she said.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Dorinzo, you're.
But in the same, we had to contemplate what William said. We're supposed to be advisory board, but we don't have the knowledge to advise to anybody. Why don't learn first what we're advice before we start jumping in something? For example, if a piece of
why don't we table G?
Between the parking lot, because that's what's going to change the whole mentality. I don't think so. They can wait a little bit longer.
Even if
Just
you
to put
table,
a little.
it
in
won't
the
change
city.
the schedule to the city commission. It will just be
Okay.
raising no action. So we're
Well-
scheduled.
Aaron, I think what you said is, let's go with, can somebody write that down?
It's
No.
required. In other words, it's denied unless it comes in for a special exception for a
Yep.
COA.
Right, so so it would be denial. You're recommending that the city commission not approve artificial turf for use in the city. If they decide to approve it, you would like for them to require a COA for all applications of artificial turf within the historic district.
Bingo.
There you go.
Do it.
You know exactly what you're getting into.
I say that.
Okay, are we able to consider what Aaron said as a motion and get a second on that?
Yes.
All right, then we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Seconded by Ms. Fox. More discussion, or shall we move to a vote?
And you can make that my motion if you want, Chairman.
All right.
Yeah, it has to be somebody's motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that motion then was made by Mr. Guthrie. Okay, we have a motion, and this is just for one of the 6 articles. Then after we make this vote, we will go on to the other 5 articles.
Correct.
All right. All those in favor of Mr. Guthrie's motion, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving forward to the rest of the components, this would be the first item we're going to talk about. Is, I'm so sorry, if somebody can mute, I'm hearing a lot of feedback on myself. So sorry. So the first item we're going to discuss is Exhibit A and D combined, and we're going to talk about them because both of these exhibits relate to the parking, storing, and keeping of commercial vehicles in non-residential districts. And Chip, you brought up some questions. You remember when we did the use changes, and we do allow for commercial vehicles in our mixed use districts to a point, but we really wanted to clarify and really codify the practices. So this is where this came back. This is where this came from. So the first one is we're kind of breaking up commercial vehicles into vehicles that weigh less than 8,000 pounds and vehicles that really are larger than 8,000 pounds. And these are really construction vehicles, very heavy duty commercial vehicles, F-350s, you know, stuff you would use to pave roads with. These are very large vehicles. And oops, I went too far. So and basically what we're saying is that these heavy duty construction vehicles, they really need to be stored in IPOC and they need to be screened. Because this is really a storing of these. These are not meant to be parked on roadways. They're not to be parked in commercial plazas. But we do have a lot of folks who may have a service business, who may have a catering business, all those kind of things, who would want to have their vehicles parked on their site. And the provisions would allow that to occur in a very specific way. And basically you couldn't use more than 25% of your parking on site for these commercial vehicles and that are less than 8,000 pounds. And then if you are taking up space, you would have to kind of demonstrate how you're accommodating your parking. We don't want to get into something that somebody's parking their entire fleet in their commercial parking lot, and then there's no parking for customers, and then all of that parking spills over. So we wanted to kind of have some limits there, some in the code. So I'm going to go ahead and move on from that. Then in Exhibit B, this is just some minor changes related to cemeteries, mausoleums, and columbariums. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And you can, some of these are related to landscaping provisions and buffering provisions.
Aaron, I have a question on that cemeteries.
Oh, sure.
One of the items has to do with opening hours, 8 a.m. till dusk or something. Why would we be involved in that, or why would the city really care about opening hours?
So a lot of times this could bring on issues of where things happen after dark, you know what I mean? So we'd want a place that would close, especially. Most of these places don't have a lot of lighting. So it's a safety issue.
Okay, the way it reads, it seems as though it is required to be open. Would it not be better to write it such that from dawn till dusk, or it must be closed after dusk and until dawn, something of the sort?
Yeah, we'll take a look at it for sure. I can see what you're saying, so we'll play with it.
Okay,
prior
thank
to
you.
taking
Exceptions for Halloween, maybe?
Definitely no exceptions for Halloween. Okay, again, outdoor storage and open air provisions. So this component of the code actually added a section related to open air operations. This includes, you know, display of outdoor items, you know, clothing display, propane tank display, all those kinds of things. They just weren't simply adequately addressed in the code. So we consolidated them and into this new section. And then again, signs. So this one is, we have a very limited temporary sign code. We do have a lot of new structures coming online that are quite large. And some of them have are requesting larger grand opening signs to fill the lease the space. So we've made a recommendation to allow additional temporary signage specifically for either new structures or fully renovated buildings in their initial grand opening leasing phase. And then we also have some landscaping regulations. This really came up with one of the main changes related to ground covers. We really didn't have a standard for the planting of ground covers to ensure that the ground cover would grow and in a way and look natural and would really cover the area in a time specific amount of time. So again, that was kind of a request from folks in our code enforcement. And then addressing inorganic mulches, and then just really making sure that rubber products like crumb rubber and chip tires, expressly prohibiting those as mulch. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Your regarding the landscape, the last thing you said, that also addresses the yards of rocks that we've been seeing.
No, those are not permitted.
Okay.
So, and that was addressed in the last round. This is really
okay.
just those were addressed in the pervious surfaces. Just, and also we identified in the last round that landscape areas, we clearly defined that a landscape area cannot have less than 50% plant material.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with it. I have no problem in approving it or voting in favor of it. I do think that last landscape thing was a little picky. That ground cover has got to be 12 inches apart or 18 inches apart and not in straight rows. I think
yeah, and how fast?
A little further than we really need to go.
Surprised with how necessary those items are, though, I will say, because what happens is a lot of times is when we're trying to achieve code compliance on a property, or we're trying to have somebody grow in their ground cover, they put so little ground cover. And we didn't start out with this, and this was actually something that we felt we needed to make the, so I will just say that. I hear what you're saying. Sometimes codes get picky when there's a need for them to be picky.
Okay.
I did a quick Google search on just a standard like a Ford F-450 that somebody would have to tow a trailer or a fifth wheel or something like that in their yard, because I know several people that have them, and they're up over 8,000 pounds. I'm wondering, is there any distinction? This does not cover residential properties, is only in commercial mixed use?
Yeah, this is only in commercial properties, and those are really, honestly, those are really commercial vehicles. So I believe under our current code, I would have to triple check on that, but I don't believe those are actually permitted in residential parking districts. These really need to be garaged or parked behind fencing. Those are very large vehicles, an F450. It has it has 3 axles at least, and they're actually in a different classification by the Florida Highway Administration. They actually classify those vehicles differently, that size of vehicle. So I would say that that's the exception in a residential area rather than the rule. And I have to really go, I did not look in residential areas, but I don't believe those are already permitted.
Does that include the landscaping trucks that we see around?
Yeah, so the trailer component of your landscaping would need to be garage kept. The trailer would need to be in a garage or would need to be in an area. Now, if folks are conducting business, they're doing repairs, and they're engaging in commercial activity, and they're parked in your yard or on the street, or they're part of a construction site, those are obviously exemptions that are built into the code. I mean, if somebody's out landscaping your yard, we're not going to say you can't park your landscaping truck next to the yard that the guy's landscaping. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And that exemption is built in. So,
well, Erin, thank you very much. You really worked very hard on this. And about the sign and banners, can we recommend the city, because we're talking about, we use the banners right there in the plaza for many, many months. Can we do something about it?
So we are going to be looking at our sign code more comprehensively. So I know this came up as a particular short-term.
As a city, we have to also respect the codes and regulations. And the banners they use right in the plaza, they are so bad. Can we recommend something? Because they use for months. They put the signs and leave it there for months. And we as a city, can we give example for the rest of the city, or recommend, or call somebody? I don't know who would be to say, the banners in the city is months. Can we do something?
All right. Are there other comments, or do we move on to a vote on this? Before we do, a very, very quick little item for, apparently I have a note here that on Article 7, there is talk about a 38-inch something or other. I think this is a Scrivener's error. It might mean 3/8 of an inch, but that's a Scrivener thing. Let's move on to
you can just email that to me, Phil, then I will look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we get a motion on the 6 items that are left on this? A recommendation.
I move to recommend to the City Commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments in PZB HRPB project number 2003100007, ordinance 2020-15.
Do we need to say with the exception of?
With the exception of G.
Right.
Thank you.
You want to accept the number, the landscape.
Yeah.
That was G.
There's 2 landscaping
Or the
sections.
landscape.
There's 2 landscaping sections. There's Exhibit F, which is the ground cover, and then there's Exhibit
So it
G,
was G.
artificial turf only.
Right, which was excluding G.
Okay. Can I have a second on that? Anyone? Seconded by Mr. Ona. All in favor of aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aaron. We move on to our last item. And that would be, what is our last item? Planning issues.
We have a presentation on, I believe, the winners of the Historic Preservation Awards.
Yeah. Well, before that, don't we have the clear glass issue?
Yes, the clear glass.
Yeah.
Mhm, yes.
Okay, that would be Mr.
Abraham has a
Fogel.
presentation on that.
Houses of the year.
And Abraham Fogel, Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. We're moving on to Planning Issues, Item A, which is consideration of an amendment to the COA approval matrix that adds clear glazing standards and consolidates information for actions that impact the exterior appearance of properties located within the historic districts. A little bit of background on this. At the August 12, 2020 HRPB meeting, the board made a motion to place a moratorium on all glass types that are not clear. Our historic preservation design guidelines indicate clear glass is the only appropriate glazing for replacement windows and doors in the historic districts. At the September 9, 2020 HRPD meeting, staff brought back some research and a standard to regulate glass in the historic districts. The board requested that staff provide additional research that compares the efficiency of clear glass versus glass with a low recoating. And the board also requested that the standard for visible light transmittance, or VLT, be revised to only account for the glazing itself and not the entire product to effectively review glass types. And again, going back to that, we learned that visible light transmittance can take into account several factors in a window product that include the frame, the grids, and all of that can impact that value. But if we only look at the VLT for center of glazing, it's only quantifying the glass itself. And with that, we can more effectively compare different glass types. Just to recap, on page 198 of our design guidelines, we have standards for window replacement within our historic districts. And number 5 indicates windows historically utilize clear glass, and therefore clear glass is the most compatible type for historic structures. Windows with low E or solar band coatings, applied tint, and mirrored finishes are not recommended. Tonight, we're looking at an amendment to our COA approval matrix. We did discuss this last time, but just as a quick recap, this is a document that provides a summary of authority. Essentially, as it relates to our historic districts, it outlines what can be approved by staff and what requires board approval for actions that impact the exterior of structures. Essentially, if you're proposing exterior alterations that have compatible design, that can likely be reviewed by staff administratively. But if it is determined by staff to be incompatible design, that means that it's in conflict with our ordinance or design guidelines, that action would need to be reviewed by the board. There are, of course, certain items such as new construction, demolition, or relief requests, such as variances, which always go to the board. Before we get into glazing, we're just gonna, for a few slides, take a step back to talk a little bit about energy efficiency. So the construction and maintenance of buildings consumes an enormous amount of natural resources and energy produced in the United States. In an effort to curb the growing energy and material consumption associated with the built environment, several professionals, including architects, engineers, builders, and planners, have developed or often rediscovered green building practices which aim to improve the energy efficiency. When applying green concepts to a building, it's also important to look at the past while considering the future. Historic homes often have advantages in green buildings since they were designed and built when energy and water efficiency were necessities. So historic homes responded to South Florida climate in many ways that are effective and affordable. And list a few examples. Windows and doors were usually covered by a generous roof overhang that provided protection from harsh sun and heating in the home. Roof vents provided additional ventilation that allowed heat and moisture to escape from the home. Rooms typically had 2 or more operable windows, which allowed for ample cross ventilation. Historic homes also use cool flooring like terrazzo or breathable materials like wood that allow air movement. We also know that a lot of our historic homes have raised foundations which allow air circulation and provide additional height, which can provide resiliency during minor flood events. Lastly, we know that many of our historic homes have a smaller footprint, which means there's less energy needed to cool it. Whenever possible, it is the best practice to use the originally designed sustainability features as intended. However, adapted reuse may prompt modifications to historic structures, so it's often important to balance the efficient use of a building with the qualities, with restoration and historic qualities. To summarize, there are several factors that influence the energy efficiency of a structure, such as roofing, windows and doors, insulation, construction type, and site features that relate to how a property is oriented and landscaped. Here I just have a snippet of North M Street, where we have a property at the end, for example, that was originally residential, and through adaptive reuse, it's been used for a more commercial use. So that's what we're talking about, adaptive reuse. We're preserving the character of a historic structure, but it's being used for a new purpose. And sometimes maybe that new purpose just means an expanded family in a residential use, and sometimes it may mean a change of use, such as residential to commercial. If we go back to glazing, windows and doors are character-defining architectural features of historic homes that should be given special consideration for compatibility and continued operational use. Windows and doors should aim to achieve energy efficiency while being consistent with the structure's historic architectural style. Apart from the window or door product itself, there are several variables that can influence its energy efficiency. The orientation in relation to the sun, shading due to nearby landscaping or roof overhangs, and use of curtains or blinds are all factors that can influence how well glazing performs. In 2019, City of Lake Worth Beach published the educational guidelines, which are a companion document to our design guidelines, which we frequently refer to. So the educational guidelines review steps towards energy efficiency, which can be applied both to existing historic structures and new construction within our historic districts. So as indicated on page 11, Low E is a non-reflective, non-tinted window film that greatly reduces heat gain through windows. It's available as a film applied to existing windows or in replacement windows. Tints in mirrored glass are typically not appropriate for historic structures and are not as effective as a low E treatment. So as an example for this discussion to compare clear with glass that utilizes low E coating, we researched the Energy Efficiency Collaborative, which offers computer simulations that compare the annual energy performance of different window types. These simulations also compare different glass types, such as clear, tinted, and low E. Factors including home size, window area, home orientation, and shading are accounted for in these simulations. So we took an example from Miami for a typical home in Miami. And there was an increase in performance, meaning lower annual energy costs for windows that utilize low E coatings compared to windows with clear glass. So it's an extensive analysis that looks at different frame materials, different kinds of glass. So here I just did a snippet to just so we could quickly see that information, where we're comparing a window that has a metal frame. Most often, the replacement products we see in our historic districts are aluminum windows. So I took that example, and here we're looking at a window with clear glass and a window with low E. Now the simulations, they take into account varying levels of low E. So if you have more coatings, it typically reflects more of that heat gain and is more efficient. So it's low, medium, and high. Here the L represents the low, which is closer to the standards we're looking at, because we're not looking at the most efficient low E with our VLT regulations. So just as an example here, we can see a window that's clear versus a window that has that less efficient low E, and you can see they're calculating in this simulation, for example, that there was about a $200 in savings annually, meaning it was more energy efficient and you had lower energy costs with the window that utilized the low E. Again, there's a lot, this is based from Miami. Obviously, we're in a different location, but this just gives a general idea of that increase in performance by using low E. So as far as context-specific regulations, this is the revised specification based on input from the board. And it reads that all glazing must be clear, non-reflective, and without tint. Low E is allowed, but the glass must have a minimum 70% visible light transmittance measured from the center of glazing. Glass tints or any other glass treatments cannot be combined with low E coating to further diminish the VLT of the glass. So with this, it was refined to, again, refer to the center of glazing. So we're not looking at the VLT of the entire window product. We're just looking at the glass. And we're talking about the 70%. And one of the board members also suggested that we added that last sentence, just again to reiterate that you cannot combine additional tint with a low E coating. So based on our research, there are several manufacturers that would offer a low E coating that meets this regulation, but also in speaking with contractors, we know window manufacturers are moving in the direction to meet the energy code. So we know with that, low E coatings are becoming more efficient and stronger. And with that, the visible transmittance gets decreased. So we do know that the direction that the big window manufacturers are growing is to discontinue those less efficient low E coatings in favor of more efficient ones that meet the Florida Energy Code. With that being said, it is our analysis that a 70% VLT measured from the center of glazing can still be considered within the range of clear glazing, which is the standard set by our design guidelines. Should the board look to be more permissive than that, our recommendation would be to also amend the design guidelines so there isn't a conflict there. As far as implementing this standard, here's a snippet of our entire COA matrix where we did some cleanup of duplicitous information, and we also added a new footnote where that standard is provided. In addition to that, we have, for permitting, we have checklists for window and door replacement, which lists the item you need to submit for that approval. So we would be, if this is approved, we would be editing that document. So our new standard is clearly listed, and one of the required items is to provide documentation that clearly lists the visible transmittance of the glass, so we can verify that at permitting. That concludes my presentation. It's our recommendation that the board adopt the amended COA approval matrix, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have. We also did have one submission of public comment.
Thank you very much.
Does this get rid of the green color?
So if you recall from the last meeting, I had a few examples. So we do know there will always be a slightly greenish hue, but when I had the comparison up of the clear band and the clear low E per se, that would be meeting the 70%, and the example that would be darker than that, I think we saw that you can still see a bit of green, but it's not substantially darker. But if we go to the darker low, that becomes, the glass is darker, it might be more reflective.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I feel like I'm responsible for us not approving it last month, and I appreciate the extra work that you've done. Are there any other comments from board members?
I'd like to hear the public comment.
Yes.
Okay. So Sherry, I can pull it up easily, or if Sherry wants to read it into the record.
I can read it into the record.
Hi, Sherry.
Hey, I'm still awake.
Still here.
It is my understanding that you're planning on discussing low E tint on windows tonight. I have 38 years of experience with window tints, and it's been brought to my attention that you may be considering low E 270 tint. That brings me to the need for this email. Low E 270 is not readily available and is my understanding that is being discontinued by Cardinal Glass. Low E 366 is the #1 selling tint in the entire US and was developed to replace 270. In fact, you have allowed my company to install Low E 366 on previous historical installations. I'm not sure how I can comment on this further without understanding your goal. Originally thought your meeting was open to the public. It's my understanding we can listen in, but we cannot comment. I would love to be able to comment on your conversation at the meeting tonight. Not sure if that's possible, maybe by phone. This is Max Guard, Hurricane Windows, West Palm Beach.
So this is from Ron Heath. After that was submitted, I just explained the ways that public comment could be submitted. And so he said we could just use this as his submission. The only thing I would add, just because it was emailed to me, he just mentioned that okay. Yeah. Sorry, we're getting some feedback here on the mic.
Sherry, can you go ahead and just read the next one? Let's just go ahead.
You're muted, Cher.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. That's the only comment we have for the 10th.
All right.
Oh, I wish I knew the difference between 366 and 742 or whatever that
I was
was.
just going to say, clarify, please.
So,
Or is that manufacturer Pacific?
so we do see some different names used. I did see those used across different manufacturers. Basically, he's providing an example of a Lowy that would meet our regulations versus the Lowy I believe is 366, which he's saying is the most commonly used now by the industry, but it would not be meeting our 70% threshold. So if we think back to our last meeting, it's essentially the difference between the lighter option, which I think the board was more comfortable with, versus the darker option.
But this guy is saying that the lighter option is being phased out in favor of the more efficient one that will not meet our new guideline.
Yes, that is correct. And that goes back to what I was seeing of how the industry is moving to meet the current energy code. That is obviously important, sustainability, but we also have to remember our context with our historic structures and that they do receive certain exceptions. So it's just important to consider those different things.
So really you have a choice. If we're gonna go with our clear standard, the choice is to move forward with that and to allow for this. If we're going to allow the darker color, we're making the recommendation that you amend the historic preservation design guidelines, and we would then contact the state and do the research to see how they would feel about that and going with the darker color.
Well, here's the question. Are we causing a major hurdle in construction and window replacement within our municipality? Are the major window manufacturers meeting our numbers of 70% here? Is it I'm building a house. Is it going to be a problem for me to find those windows?
So you still have the option of clear, which
okay,
manufacturers offer. And yes, potentially a consequence is that maybe not every manufacturer and not maybe with the standard glass would have the option that would meet the 70% threshold. And like Aaron summarized, we researched and we tried to come up with within the realm of clear what we can do without amending our regulations. So it's really, do we stay kind of within the range of clear, and we understand the industry is moving away from this, maybe not every manufacturer would have this option, or do we think we should allow it, but the proper way to allow it would be to first amend our design guidelines, since it specifically says you shouldn't use the low E or the solar ban.
We're back to clarifying clear.
Yeah.
Am I reading this right, that manufacturers are, in order to meet the Florida code, are going from 70% down to 60 and 50 as time goes on? 5 years from now, will no one have a low E with a 70% VTL, whatever it is, VLT?
Opinion?
Are we going to put in a law and tell somebody to buy something that isn't there?
That's what we're asking. Are they going to make it anymore? Right now, I know, Chip, you know, building products right now during COVID are hard. All the prices are going up, and you can only get half the stuff that you want when you go to build a house. So are we putting a restriction that's just going to cause issues down the road?
So I think
For
what
you?
Abe said is that they are slowly phasing it out. The product is still available to purchase now. If you want to move forward, our recommendation is that you move forward with the darker. If you decide to move forward and allow the darker low E, that the historic preservation design guidelines will not apply. Because I think the conclusion was that this is not anything darker than the 70%, and staff's recommendation is not clear.
Correct.
This whole issue comes about in effect. Number one, historic guidelines say clear only. They do not even make the exception for low E.
Correct.
Us wanting to bring in energy efficiency into people that are protecting their home with glass said, okay, look, we will allow the low E. All right, well, low E now we're finding out comes in several different flavors. So we wanted to define what flavor we would allow. We said, okay, the low E that allows only 70%. The issue is that people are going out and buying products before they apply for permits, and then they come and ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission. And if we stick to the 70% that allows for some energy efficiency, we can tweak it down the road. If we find out that 70% is not available, if somebody comes in front of us and says, look, I tried to get 70%, but it's not available, so this is the only thing that's available, it is 65%. Will you allow this? And they can come in front of the board and we can approve it,
right,
or not.
Or not, or say, then you must go clear.
It's clear. Abraham, who's the biggest manufacturer? Is it PGT?
Yes, and then it owns several other manufacturers.
Okay, so predominantly PGT, they have clear. I want to go buy a single hung, a double hung, 6/1, whatever. They have clear.
Yes.
Okay.
I also want to bring up that we don't know what other products folks are going to make in the future. So by establishing the transmittance standard, if somebody makes a clearer low E that is somehow, and it is equivalent of what it is now, the people are going darker, but if there's another technology that's invented to do that, then the 70%
right.
Where you want to go.
Well, the question I've got, with the letter from the guy that's in the industry, is that we are all speaking in terms of LVT, and he is speaking in terms of 346 or 747, which we're not in tune to. That's industry jargon, and he knows what he's talking about. But we're, maybe that was the more specific, that if somebody were to look at this guidance that we're planning on approving tonight, they're going to have to go back to their supplier and say, is this glass you're putting in 70%?
Right.
Or what, as opposed to if we said that it's got to be, 376 or lighter, or something along those lines. But I'm happy with the 70%. Let them do their homework. let's approve it because we want to keep things moving, and people would be able to go ahead and order glass now with a 70% VTR. They can do whatever they want as long as they keep it within the 70% VTR. And I think we've accomplished what we're trying to do. If we need to tweak it, we can go back.
Okay.
With that, just in our research, a different manufacturer may call their Lowy coating something different.
Right.
And so we know that in the Windows specifications, this is one of the numbers you get. So in our research, it just seemed like a more common denominator to go with that number instead of calling the specific window film, since it may vary from manufacturer to manufacturer.
Okay.
So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and approve the changes to the matrix that are proposed and part of our package tonight.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, then all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Others opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
I just want to commend Abraham really quickly. He did an incredible amount of research on this. So he's definitely to be acknowledged for this.
Listen, Abraham, I tried to move the goalposts a little bit for you, but they wouldn't let me, so.
This clearly
Good
is
job.
a situation where you should have had samples of the glass and then adjourned to the closest pub to look at them in person.
We had it last time.
We did that. We had show and tell last, yeah.
Missed that.
All right, I
Yes,
think we are on to department reports now. Are we on to department reports?
I think we're on to,
Jordan is getting the presentation ready for department reports related to the awards. I just want to bring up that we have received the Gulfstream application while he's loading the PowerPoint, and we are anticipating that to be before you at your December meeting. So very exciting.
Wonderful.
All right, folks, I'm going to be real quick with this. So we kind of put this together. So we kind of put this together because you all didn't really get to meet a lot of the applicants. So this is just a quick rundown of us presenting the awards to the applicants. We're also working on something to go up on the city website. So we'll be sending you a link to that shortly. But again, these were the 2020 Historic Preservation Award winners. This was the plaque that they received. So we're just gonna run through them really quickly. Again, this is 113 South Federal Highway. Before and after shot that won under the rehabilitation category. So we sent the owners a questionnaire to write up some information on for the website. But here you can see the photos of the contractors and the homeowner. And when asked to describe the rehabilitation process, Julie Shee, who's the project manager, answered, there are always surprises with renovations, but we have learned to expect even more surprises with older homes. We found all sorts of old newspapers hidden in the walls of the front room while we were reworking the window layouts. Turns out that's how some rooms were insulated back in the day. The project went along relatively as planned, although we didn't, or planned that we didn't have any large hurdles to jump. Okay, this was 407 South Lakeside Drive, again, one under the rehabilitation restoration category. On the left, you can see the property owners. That is Justin Hu and his wife, Catherine. And on the right is the project manager. We didn't get a questionnaire filled out for them, but they were very, very excited to get the award. This is 231 North Ocean Breeze, again, for the rehabilitation and compatible addition category. This is Daryl and Loretta Shadow. And when asked, why did you decide to purchase a historic building and why did you choose to undertake this project? They responded, we love old houses with character and history. We are originally from central Pennsylvania, an area rich with Civil War history, farmlands, and historic homes. We wanted a house with charm and character that didn't look like every other house on the street. We were actually looking to purchase one of Lake Worth's cottages, but found this house to be a charming example of a 1920s Mission Revival style house, and we were hooked from the moment we walked through the front door. This is 330 North Palmway. And this is Brett Swenson and Peggy Donahue. And when asked, what do you value most about your historic home or property? They answered, we love knowing that G. Sherman Childs designed our home. Seeing the other beautiful homes he worked on and owning a part of his legacy has been a real honor. We even met with his granddaughter recently with the help of Marion Cohn at the Historical Society of Lake Worth, and learned more about his family and the impact that he had on the city. 1101 North Lakeside Drive, which Mr. Harris had some involvement with. That is Kurt Hyde and Emilio Ravella. They're currently not in town, so we haven't been able to present the award to them yet, but we'll be doing so shortly. But again, we're writing up a nice article and a nice piece for the website, so we'll send you a link to that whenever that's up.
Thank you. Good job.
And that concludes my bit.
Wonderful. Any discussion on that? I'd like to reiterate what I said last month, that I really would like to see these houses in the monthly insert in our electric bills, so that the entire city can see that our board is having an effect on the city.
Absolutely. And that's still in the works. And I believe it was Mr. Guthrie who recommended contacting the Post, which we are going to do. We just have to get all of our information ready to send out, and we have plans to do all of that.
Great. Wonderful. I guess we're down to board member comments. Comments from board members before we adjourn.
Well, I have a comment. I received this information by mail from Robert.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody have opportunity to read. I think it's, that would be good to tell the business to plug all the work the city is doing. It's a good information, and I think, congratulations, Bob.
Thank you very much. Well, I wanted to do that, and I got stuck on it. So I had all the highlights, and I reached out to Jordan and Abraham, and they really helped me write that. So I got to give them kudos and big thanks to helping me with that. I've gotten a lot of calls and emails because our neighbors really don't. Are we in a historic district?
Right.
And I get it constantly on a daily basis. So I try to do that as much as I can, and I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, this is great information. It's such a simple to read, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Robert. Is there anything else?
I'd like to compliment staff. Staff did an excellent job tonight. Abraham, thank you very much for all your work on the glazing. I'd like to welcome our new member, Mr. Harris. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure listening to your input tonight, and I'm sure you're going to fit right in. This is thank you for applying.
One thing I need to say, credit where credit is due. I had very little to do with that 1101 house. The actual, I just helped get the windows in, basically. Gotcha. Mostly interior stuff. It was really the exterior, the colors, the landscaping was all done by Deborah Yates, and she did a really good job. I mean, it's beautiful. She laid out all the sunwork.
It is.
That turned out really well.
All right, folks. Unless there are more comments, I think that's about it. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved, seconded, I'm sure. Thank you very much, folks.
Y'all have a good week. Take care.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Pamela.